What? Oh, is this thing on, dudes? Whoa. Okay, how do I switch the thing here?
Hey, Sooks, come on, this has got to be perfect. We got to scam as much money as possible out of our audience
I'm
today.
trying, Stan. Okay, I think I got it.
Just
Here
switch it over.
Here we go. Got it. Hey, everybody, my dudes, everybody. Hey.
Looks like we got some gullible people out there today. Just put your money in this hat. Yeah.
Welcome
everyone
to podcast 135.
That's right.
One of my favorite numbers.
Oh, Gravity Falls.
Yes, gravity.
Yeah.
Gravity Falls.
Oh boy.
Bill wouldn't possess us.
We know things. Lots of things.
Oh my god, y'all. So this is a show that we watched and we didn't do reactions for it. I know that's a thing and I'm sorry, but hey, we were really trying to connect with our younger brother,
and this is
his favorite show of all time. So we promised all of y'all that were big fans of Gravity Falls that we would do a podcast for sure on the show.
Because also like let's be real, we're kind of in the void right now because
we finished Gravity Falls.
We finished Gravity Falls and it's
and
so well
so good.
Now there's no more and
yeah, this is the you should have joined Shiratorizawa, but it's the you should have come to Shiratorizawa, but instead it's you should have done Gravity Falls reactions. Hey, I'll just say that you don't need to see the Gravity Falls reactions once you hear kind of crazy we enjoyed just the whole story here. So we're gonna be going into that there, and kind of going, I would say a little bit longer than we usually do, and I would say more generalized of just a discussion than usual, because we're talking about an entire series, not some aspect of a series, the characters of the series or the arcs of the series.
I feel like this is both an analysis and also a grieving, a wake for the fact that it's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone.
And you guys have probably been dealing with this for a lot longer than we have.
Than us, but
yeah. And what's weird in some ways is that this is the show that I would have eaten up if I had watched it when it was airing. I would have been an insane member of the community, solving puzzles, coming up with really dumb theories, really trying to figure out the way to crack the code of Gravity Falls.
There were points where we were like, okay, Seuss is clearly in on all of this. He's hiding something, and he's putting all this on as a disguise because he actually knows way more than he should.
Yeah, Seuss at certain points gave us vibes that he knew a lot more than he was letting on, but he was
His wisdom is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. It seemed like he was specifically hiding things because he knew because of what Stan had told him. But before we get into all that stuff, we got to give a shout out to one of our VIP patrons, Mew. Thank you so much for the recent upgrade to VIP support on Patreon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and hope to see you in the Discord.
Yes.
So yeah, the wound was closed until you reopened it. Hey, Zychronia. I mean. Yeah, I'm sorry, but this is what we're experiencing right now, so here we go.
Suffer with us.
Yeah. Gravity Falls is a Disney Channel show that, for those of you that have not seen the show and for some reason are still here, that we are going into major spoilers on. I know there are a lot of YouTubers out there that do spoiler-free reviews and stuff, but we're just going to be gushing about the show, so we don't know how to do non-spoiler...
And if you haven't seen this, watch it. Watch it.
Really watch it.
It's so good.
It's a quality Western animation.
Yep.
Don't let the Disney Channel thing fool you. This almost shouldn't have made it through.
Right. The fact that there was a Disney exec that greenlit everything that happens in this show kind of blows my mind. Just a little bit.
Yeah. So the show is one that I would say you could definitely binge watch rather quickly. It's 2 seasons, 20-ish episodes per season. I think it's 41 total. 20 minutes, per episode.
And it is an episodic show for the most part. So, the binging does lend itself well to that.
Yeah, for sure. But it is basically this is about as much we'll go into the non-spoilery part before we just go headlong into character stuff and spoilers. But it's basically if you took the X-Files and you made the main characters kids and then put them in some kind of like, you know, weird town kind of lost cabin kind of like what's that one show?
Quirky and fun.
Yeah, but what's that one show? Y'all help me out here. That one show where, you know, they're at the location in the backwater area and there's some strange things going on and stuff, but it's kind of like a summer vacation thing as well. I really felt like Gravity Falls was kind of doing it. Oh my god, yes, hardback Twin Peaks. Yes, Twin Peaks. Yeah, it's basically Twin Peaks animation meets X-Files, but actually good. That's regarding the X-Files part. Sorry for those of you that are X-Files fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really good. I think once Jacob and I finished it, we just kind of sat back and were like, what do we do now?
Okay, because like, if you're going into it, I do want to say one thing is just to help set expectations if you haven't seen it before.
Right. Sure.
It is an episodic show.
It is very episodic.
It is very episodic.
Yep.
It's very good episodic.
It is.
And it does have an overarching story that it gets into that is fantastic and amazing, and the ending is incredible, but it is episodic. So, like, I feel like sometimes maybe if, like, people are, like, certainly if I was going to show it to somebody, I would be tempted to talk about all of the highlight moments of like the ending and things like that and give a wrong impression of what the show is.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean the episodic stuff is bad by any stretch of the imagination. That was some of my favorite aspects of the show. I pretty much instantly fell in love with it. But just so you know, that is its format.
Right. Yeah. Formatting wise, this is going to be something that will seem rather familiar and maybe a little bit Scooby-Doo-ish.
Sure.
Actually. And that could be like a, oh, that's wonderful, or a, oh, maybe that's not for me then. But I will say, if you're willing to watch the whole thing, it is a very rewarding experience.
Oh yeah.
And if you have a mystery bone in your body,
yes,
a single mystery bone, just watch it.
It is
just watch it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's great.
Just go check it out. Mm-hmm. It's got something.
You can leave the podcast. It's fine. Like.
Yep.
Because you do not want to be
spoiled.
We're not doing
this for views. We're
not doing this for views.
Yeah,
but you do not want to be spoiled on this show. I'll just say.
Right. So okay. This show, y'all.
Yep.
Before we get into it in the plot sense, let's just talk about the fact that somehow this show made some of the most memorably unique characters in Western animation.
Yeah. Like
the characters are probably the actual best thing about this show in a way that you're never really going to be aware of until you're really trucking through season 2.
Mm-hmm. Like
really trucking through season 2.
Like, people asked us afterwards in the Discord, like, okay, who's your favorite character?
I didn't have to think about it. I was like, Grunkle Stan.
Right.
Stanley.
And I totally agree with you, and yet at the same time, I literally cannot choose.
Yeah.
I cannot choose. Because, like, it was just like, oh, yeah, Bill Cipher, Grunkle Stan,
Mabel.
Wendy, Mabel, Wendy, Seuss. Oh, wait, I forgot about the main characters, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mabel, Dipper, like, wait, that's just all of them,
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yep. We got some subs coming in here. General C. Patton and Trashocon, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub and the Twitch Prime.
Mm-hmm.
General C. Patton said, don't normally follow the podcast, but I have to be here for Gravity Falls. Other podcasts can wait. Yeah, I mean, Gravity Falls is quite special there.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. And then there's really tertiary characters like Waddles, who becomes a side character, actually, at a point. Upgrades from tertiary to side character.
Or freaking Gideon. Like
Gideon, I did not expect Gideon to. Whoa, yeah.
After I watched Gideon's introductory episode, like, just repeatedly to our younger brother that showed us the show, I just had to say over and over again, no context, just, I can buy and sell you, old man. Like, oh, Gideon. Oh, man. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god. Don't forget the weirdest dude around, Tad Strange. Yes, I am Tad Strange, and I am very normal. Yes, yes indeed. But then, of course, the best kind of strange, the one who is a tad strange, but he is definitely the best Tad Strange. McGucket!
Yep.
McGucket even got backstory and character development.
Like, okay. His
I'm totally using McGucket's voice in a One Piece manga dramatic reading at some point.
It's actually no. Wait, hold
no,
on.
we haven't used that exact voice.
Not that exact voice, yeah, but okay, but like McGucket's introduction of just the, I can't remember the last time my son, did anything with me, and it's like, oh, that's wow, okay, and then backstory later, and it's just like that's not at all heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's go through the cast of characters and just gush about them here, because this is probably the part that needs to be stated here. The characters in this show carry a lot of the simpler plots in the episodic parts of the show.
Yes.
So, when you think about what makes a good character, you have their specific number, maybe 3 to 5 things that you can kind of consistently count on them to deliver. Then you have their dialogue style and flow. You have the actual acting with regards to the voice actors, because this is animation, so voice acting is extremely key to get right, because you don't have that added bit of facial expressions and such. Then the other part is basically any kind of development that they go on from the initial bit of characterization. And Dipper and Mabel are kind of the quintessential sibling duo.
Yeah, this
that
is
you can
how you
put
do
up
a sibling duo.
that you can put up there with Edward and Alphonse Elric.
Personally, I'd say I'd even go past Edward and Alphonse. I'm sorry, and that is not anything against Edward and Alphonse, but but the way that the dynamic between Dipper and Mabel was handled consistently, every single episode, where it's just them as as brother and sister, and all the fights they would get into, and all of that stuff, and the way they learned to better understand each other and overcome their differences and everything. That was so good, so good.
Yeah. So Dipper is kind of teased out a little bit, I would say, throughout the show, as kind of being the main-ish of the two characters, in the same way that Edward would be kind of considered the main-ish of the characters in
he's the more common perspective character,
right? Because Edward in that case asks the questions regarding alchemy.
Right.
In this story, Dipper is the one that asks the questions regarding the mystery. And it is something where they definitely capitalize, I would say, on that fanboy kind of character who you can kind of root for and relate to if you're a fan of this story. And that's, I'd say, more of something that they get into in the second season, specifically to kind of poke a little fun at the fans and make jokes about the whole thing there.
Sure.
But he legitimately goes on a bit of a journey along the lines of something that is a very classic coming of age arc, and that is regarding self-confidence and self-belief. It's pretty simple, but over the course of the show, he slowly but surely goes through these milestones via other characters that he might, crush on, specifically, one character. Dealing with the fact that his sister is in some ways far more confident in every way than he is. So her arcs never revolve around actually attaining confidence. So the things that he's lacking, she has. So there's this complementary aspect to where when you see him feeling inadequate, Mabel just is there and happens to fill that perfect aspect of his inadequacy. And then he actually absorbs that and grows from that and ends up at the end of the show, he's a leader. He's making stuff happen. It kind of feels like a Sokka kind of character arc over the course of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
And it's something that really strikes that balance in a fantastic way between having them be very relatable and at the same time having that bit of going on the adventures and stuff, and embodying some of those and this, not quite this word, but heroic aspects sort of that you wished you could have taken on as a 12-year-old, or as a kid, whatever age you're talking about. And that dynamic they handle really well, because I feel like it's very easy to have a character that handles those too well or just not at all.
For sure. Discussion VODs and everything, they get uploaded basically just whenever. like there's no just specific thing for that. They'll get uploaded just later. I would say not within a week. Just expect that, because they can be viewed on Twitch for a while anyway. But Dipper as a character is not the sole main character of the show.
No.
And there are quite a few times where Dipper takes a back seat to his sister Mabel.
Sure.
Mabel is his twin, and there's a lot of themes we'll get into with the rule of two. The rule of two does not just apply to Star Wars, my friends. It is very prevalent in this show. Oh my god. So, Mabel, Jacob. Mabel is kind of just like introduced so perfectly when you first see her. He's like, my sister is positive. And then she's like, grass, yay! And she just kind of rolls down a hill, and you're like, oh, so she's kind of derpy, but like, she just owns who she is.
Right. It's one of those things where Mabel and Dipper are very different. Unbelievably different. And I think that's one of the things that makes them work out really well, is because then they can complement each other, right? Like you said. And it's not that Mabel is like perfect because of her confidence in certain areas and things like that, because she does have the times where she needs to go into Sweaterville.
Yes, that's true.
Like, or Sweater Zone, or whatever she calls it. But it's also something where she is, one, just incredibly fun to watch. Like her energy really does carry a lot of it, and then Dipper has more of the like, okay, but what about these questions about the mysteries and stuff, right? But that also causes them to come into conflict with each other, right?
Yes.
Which is like that just helps you bring out all the better aspects of these characters, because then we get to see who they really are and to what depths they really go, you know. And it's not just stuff that all happens on the surface.
Yes, I would say that this is one of the areas that a lot of shows that have dual main characters, specifically ones that are siblings, they tend to shy away from it, actually. They just have moments where one of them needs a pick-me-up. They have moments where it's like, oh, you're a little down, I'll pick you up. I'm perfectly there and available and ready to, you know, be there for you.
Yep.
There is a mini kind of sub-arc that the show goes on in the later parts of the second season, where you realize that the two siblings are starting to realize that the dynamic duo thing isn't destined to go on forever.
Right. It could very easily stop or go very bad. And there is a moment where you realize that neither character is mature enough in order to be the pick-me-up for the other person. Yes.
And this is probably the moment, I would say, where the sibling dynamic ascended into the annals of being like really like great, just great. And Mabel starts to lose a lot of her quintessential confidence. She goes into a darker place. And as a character who we've seen kind of be the source of a lot of the jokes, like whereas Dipper was kind of the butt of a lot of the jokes, and Mabel was kind of the one dishing a lot of the jokes and kind of just making like awkward sounds and stuff like that. That aspect of Mabel was really fun. And then when we saw her fail or saw her struggle and deal with specific problems, oftentimes it would be that in the same way that she would help Dipper, Dipper would help her.
Right.
Then when it got to the point where stuff was getting too real, no, it wasn't so simple to where one could just help the other. Things spiraled.
And one of the reasons that I really like how this dynamic is handled is because especially in sibling dynamics, I feel like it can be really easy for one sibling to fall into the more strictly supportive role. I would say even in Full Metal Alchemist, Al generally goes into the supporting role for Edward, right?
That's true.
Because Edward is the one mostly like running things, you know? And Dipper is definitely pushing things forward from a plot perspective.
Right.
But from a character perspective, oftentimes in the same episode, they will have an issue that the other person could help fix. But because the issue oftentimes revolves around the other person, they both need to actually come together, right? And it's something that for some reason, especially in anime, maybe well, let's just say family dynamics are not usually gone into very well in anime in general, whether you're talking about siblings or like the parents that are never present or things like that.
Why can't I just get inside your head right now and just see all the bad jokes you want to make?
The initials for Disney's Gravity Falls. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. But that also extends to other characters like Stan. You know?
Yes. So we stand Stan in this in this business here. So this is my favorite character. Jacob can't pick, but I don't have to think long and hard about this one. This was a character that you could tell that the creator of the show specifically wanted to get the most
Yep.
characterization out of. I remember, and I almost want to kind of bring you with me along the mindset of where I was at as I watched the show.
Mm-hmm.
Stan ascended from being a grumpy old guy in the first episode to being a grumpy old guy with a secret.
Yes.
And the thing is that grumpy old guy being in Western kids show is actually a weird choice.
Oh.
Because he's old.
Yeah.
Why is an old guy in our blah goofy kind of kids show, right?
And him being grumpy also. I
don't think the grumpy part. I think if anything, it was just more that he's an old guy and he doesn't provide necessarily kids humor. The grumpy part shows that, most old people are grumpy in general. It's from a kid's perspective.
But it's not
why are you such a grunk? Grunkle Stan.
Right, but it could have been easy to make him sort of like a McGucket kind of old guy character, where it's sort of like the zany old guy, or like the quirky old guy, rather than like the.
Okay. I think if anything, like that's the part that they would want to avoid, and they would rather do kind of a little bit more of a stereotype old guy, which is kind of just like, oh, you kids. And
sure.
If only those darn kids would do it.
Right.
But actually, if anything, Stan only has maybe a couple minor moments throughout the show because he's their family, and that's another thing that's really important, is that he kind of is totally endeared to them over throughout the show, but there's moments where maybe they're like going blah with the silly string, and they're like, okay, fine, enough, too much chaos. I want the chaos, if it's in here, to be making me money, so let's tone down on that madness here.
In a way, Stan kind of feels like a combination of Squidward, Mr. Krabs, with like Tsundere Grandpa mixed in.
Sure. I see what you're going for there.
And I gotta say, one of the things that really made because from the first episode, I'm like, okay, I love this with the gnomes and all of that stuff.
Sure.
And then him going behind the vending machine, I was like, all right, this is great.
Yeah.
But then in the very next episode, they show the Tsundere Grandpa, right? They have I just want to spend time with these kids, and they don't really want to spend time with me, and okay.
Yes.
All right. Like, that was where I was like, all right, awesome. He's not just going to be some sort of mysterious figure. He's going to be a character that we're really going to come to know and love.
Right, and that's the point that I really wanted to make here, is that when he was introduced in the show, you see where he's actually meant to be the adult comic relief character.
Yeah.
Because in a kid's show, you have to make the adults feel like they are making the right choice in putting their kids to sit down in front of this kids show.
Right. Make it fun for them
and
too.
And if they're going to hear these dumb voices constantly coming through the tube on Saturday mornings, well, they better hear something that they enjoy every once in a while.
Exactly.
And Grunkle Stan provides that rather well in the first season. Like, bodies change, Mabel. Bodies change. Like, there's so many lines from Stan that are so quotable before you get any real characterization from him.
My wife still misses me, but her aim is getting better.
He's so quotable. His voice is probably the quintessential voice, which is why Alex Hirsch was like, no, I'm voicing Stan. There's a reason for this. He's like my favorite character, probably. I could see Seuss being his favorite character too, but yeah, he had to give the voice acting to the two kids, to people that could actually do that. So Stan then becomes Tsundere Grandpa, and you're like, wait a minute, are we actually having him be an old guy because he has a story? There's this notion that when the kids came to Gravity Falls, hold on, this is important here.
I know, I'm just reading all the quotes.
Stop reading the quotes. You can engage with me on this.
Yes.
The fact that the kids came here, and the way they came here was so casually like, yeah, we knew that the parents were irrelevant. They were irrelevant. They threw their kids into a bus and were like, go away. We're going to have sex for like 3 months,
Go visit this relative that
we don't even really know.
We don't even really know, because otherwise we would know that it's actually a different relative.
Yeah, exactly. So we know that the kid's backstory is irrelevant as well. What happens is this story of them in the summer is important. However, because this old guy is here, and he is the proprietor, so everything conflict plot-wise could stem towards him and him being at the
Uh-huh.
center. That fits well narrative-wise. But the fact that he is an old guy, and we're starting to see a little bit of multi-dimensional stuff potential kind of hinted at already in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
He was perfectly set up to be given the full character arc
Exactly.
to where he gets to the end of the show.
And
It was so rewarding to watch.
And also, as far as because one of the things that I really loved about the show wasn't just the characters individually, but how the whole was greater than the sum of its parts, and the individual parts were fantastic. But like Dipper and Mabel, right? Them together, yes, awesome.
Right.
Dipper or Mabel still would have been great in any story.
Yeah.
Them together is even better.
Mm-hmm.
Grunkle Stan and Stanford all into the mix makes their whole quartet go to new heights because
definitely
because it's relevant, right? The stuff Stanley's character arc is relevant to the kids, right? Because they don't want to have the same thing happen to them that happened to Stanley and Stanford. But like because anytime you get into like character growth, like lessons and things like that, you want it to be relatable, right? So you don't want it to be like too specific or things like that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that can often be gotten into when you're dealing with older characters is why the hell haven't you dealt with this before?
Sure.
Right? That's where a lot of melodrama and serialized television comes from, is because it's really you should have dealt with this when you were 11. Like
a 55-year-old having the elementary school problems, and it's like
what
did
the
you
hell is happening,
survive?
right?
You
It
know?
really can make you lose respect for the character because
yes, well said.
But in this situation, because the 2 main characters are 12, those things make sense.
Yes.
And you can relate to them and maybe be like, it's a good reminder, but also it makes sense that they're learning this because they're 12, right?
Right.
With Grunkle Stan, it's I've learned a lot of the lessons that you kids may have learned. I also may have hard failed on some of them
Or chosen to ignore them for reasons.
Right, for reasons, but it's an active thing. It's not just something where it gets brought up and it's not brought up again, and then it's like, why with this character kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But it's that it's brought up with the kids, and then the reverse bad side of it is shown with Grunkle Stan, because you totally know that Grunkle Stan is not a perfect person, shall we say?
No, not perfect.
Like in real life, you would never want to send your kids to go spend a summer with a Grunkle Stan. That would be awful. That would be absolutely
He gives
awful.
off all kinds of vibes that are not safe for 12-year-olds.
Right. It's fun and hilarious because it's in a cartoon and it's done in a lighthearted manner and everything, and it's the Tsundere Grandpa thing. But if you take it seriously, you realize that this is a sad, lonely old man who's going to die alone. Yep.
And that's something that, as a kids show, and I don't like to use this as an excuse, but I would say as any show where you set up a character in such a way that, they have some likable qualities about them, and then they also seem to have hints of something else going on behind the scenes, you then have to ask the question, is this going to be realized? Is the thing that they're tantalizing me with, is the potential that's stewing underneath this character, is that actually going to go anywhere? And I would say that is a question we all kind of ask whenever a mystery thing is set up there. So I would say that Stan, as a character and as a caricature as he is in the beginning, is perfectly set up to be the focal point for the entire show's mystery.
Right.
And then, oh my God, when they give him focus in the episodes, when the show goes into the more large narrative story stuff, and they start to go a little bit more in depth into him, and you start to peel back the layers, and you start to see the inconsistencies consistently brought up, you go, whoa, buddy, hold on.
Yeah.
Is your story one of grief, trauma, like depression, like guilt?
Yeah. Like when...
oh God!
They do plenty of stuff in the first season before you get to the episode where they go into Stan's mind, right?
Tale of two. Well, there's a couple things that
There's a lot of awesome things that happen there. But man, when I think that was when we lost our minds.
Yeah.
Where we lost all semblance of sanity,
Yeah.
Also with the Bill introduction with the teeth thing, but seeing,
we're not talking about Bill yet.
Yeah, we're not talking about Bill yet.
Yeah.
But seeing going into Stan's mind and all the stuff that was in there, even though it wasn't necessarily directly focused on too much, but just showing this tapestry out in front of us of, this is Stan.
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah,
oh my
Dreamscapers.
God.
Dreamscapers at the end of season 1 was, I think, where we lost our collective minds.
Yep.
When Dreamscapers was brought up, I think there was more discussion with paused frames and everything as we like Dreamscapered basically.
Yep.
Throughout the entire sequence, just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And I think that in some ways, Gravity Falls from a, we're not going to go too much into the plot here because we're still talking about the characters, but from a season 1 to season 2 kind of things, you can definitely feel the pressure of needing to end the show in season 2 a little bit.
Yeah.
But in season 1, the stuff they focused on with Stan, when it led up to the Dreamscaperers episode, I think even at that point, he was already my favorite character. Because there were things that they were saying, we are going to go into this. He is important. His backstory is mired in all kinds of other stuff. And then he has the moment where he assembles the Triforce, you know, the 3 journals, and he's like, all right, okay, cool. And then we're like, okay, so we're going to get this stuff in season 2. And then season 2, there was just no question for me. He went into some crazy territory.
I gotta say, one of the other things that I really liked, like, okay, with all the characters in Gravity Falls, one of the things that I think really helps them a lot is how they're drawn.
Sure.
The character designs fit their personalities really well and also fit their paths that they go on. So with Grunkle Stan in particular, right? The thing that stood out to me in the first episode when he goes behind the vending machine is he doesn't look like the behind the vending machine that looked sleek, it looked high tech, all this stuff.
Sure.
And here's this old, like grumpy old man,
in the wife beater with
in the sweaty wife beater with the the hat and everything, and like hunched over, and all the hair on his chest and arms and stuff. I'm like,
you're leading a double life.
But yeah, like there's a disconnect there. Where's the connection between those two, right? And it works so well. And then even with things like Mabel having her braces, but also her really chubby cheeks, like one of my favorite parts in the opening is when she's hugging
Waddles,
Waddles, and it's just like
the characters are drawn really well, and they're used to accentuate their caricature shtick before they end up getting development in, usually I would say, season 2 for the side characters, for sure.
I feel like it's an example of, like, especially in anime, and maybe it's just because of the difference in style and whatnot, but there will be like tons of detail put into a lot of the character designs and things like that.
Yeah.
Even the simpler character designs will be like pretty complicated by comparison, And I think this is just a great example, and granted it's in the real world, so it makes sense from that standpoint too. But there's so much that you can do in the less is more approach, right? With the power of simplicity, and so I'm really glad they did that.
Okay, so we've gone over, in my opinion, what I would say are the mainest of the main characters.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of
they're the core.
There are a lot of characters that are introduced either way later. They're very important, or they're characters where they are definitely there and present, but their development is one that's more contained within an episode, usually in around season 2, because there's a point in the show where they basically shift and just do a bunch of development focused episodes on a bunch of the cast that haven't really gotten development as much yet. But they all had some aspect of consistent characterization that led into their development episode really well. So let's start with Seuss. This is the goodest of boys. Like, when you think back on the show, Jacob, and realize how many hints we got as to what his main motivation was, doesn't it make you just want to cry? Like, it's beautiful.
I think,
he's a goddamn treasure.
Yep. And well, one of the things that
Seuss,
when I first was watching it, right, and we see Seuss here, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that didn't happen was that he just ended up being the butt of a bunch of the jokes.
Yes, because he was the other butt of the jokes.
Right, because he was the other butt of the jokes, right? And he's a person that very much lends himself to having jokes made of him very easily. With the way he talks.
He's a little dopey.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but he's just such a good kid, and and that still comes through before his backstory
True.
comes up.
Very true.
And that's something that I think is really important, because
Yep.
it was something where the backstory was an explanation, not a subversion, right?
Yes, it was a...
It
yeah.
wasn't taking his character into a new trajectory. It was basically saying there's a lot more here than you've seen, but it still
Right.
felt consistent, right?
Yeah.
And that, like you were saying, with all the hints that were given beforehand, that I think is what helped make it really work. Because, like, can you imagine how awful that would be if it was like, okay, we're gonna do some backstory for a character, but then it's like, but now they're someone completely different. Like, what?
Right.
You know? Okay.
Anything that Gravity Falls does to characterize the characters in a deeper way always is consistent back among the little bits of characterization, the breadcrumb trail, if you will, that has been coded into the show from the beginning of season 1. So we're going to talk about all that consistency and stuff in a second, but Seuss, magnificent character, utilized properly in his role as kind of the dopey sidekick that ends up having some wonderful moments because he was handled well and consistently well across the show.
And his comedy is wonderful.
His comedy is wonderful. We haven't even gotten to the dialogue yet with the show in general, but let's go to the next, I would say, kind of main side main character.
Yes.
And that's, I would say, one of your favorite characters for
Definitely.
sure. I definitely love her as well, but I feel like she could have gotten a little bit more, and that's Wendy.
Same. Yeah. Someone mentioned who's your least favorite character. I don't have a least favorite character.
Same,
but
yeah.
I wish that Wendy had gotten more focus.
Right.
Like that wasn't related to just Dipper having a crush on her, you know?
Right.
But I gotta say,
Stuff with her family, basically.
Stuff,
a little bit more,
stuff with her family. Some of the darker stuff that she seemed to be dealing with in the second season. But like the Wendy as a character is fantastic for a bunch of reasons. But when episode 5 came around, the inconvenience or the inconveniencing or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And that episode happened, and Dipper like actually started to get a crush on Wendy. I loved that for a few reasons. One, his crush on her wasn't based on her looks. It was something where she actually just had like
She's
a ton
cool,
of personality, and she was cool, right?
She's charismatic.
Like I'm pretty sure anyone.
And she treated him kind of like an equal, I would say, for the most part.
Like
For the most part.
Right, for the most part. You know,
Yeah.
she was still very much a person and still 15 and all that stuff.
Right.
But, you know, so that came through in some areas.
Right.
But she seemed like a cool person. And I'm pretty sure that, like, anyone who watched this when it was coming out would have had a crush on Wendy. Like I know I would have, right? Because... And it makes it work for the romance subplot in a coming of age story, because it's not just here's this hot girl, it's this girl's cool, like
right.
and yeah, she treats me like a real person and stuff. Okay, yeah, is there some way that I can impress her or whatever? And all the time you're thinking, no,
this is never gonna work.
This is never gonna work.
This is never
You're
gonna
12,
work.
she's 15, like that, not gonna happen, right?
Right.
But of course, Dipper can't help but hope that something could happen, and the way that whole dynamic is covered across the seasons, like
it's handled really well.
It's handled really well. Like
I want to comment on something here that's really tricky that the show handles, I would say, rather well. Is there's a couple times where the characters start to fall into their archetypes, and you realize, okay, I've now seen the 10 poles, the bounds at which this character can operate in. And Wendy started to get into that, I would say, a little bit towards the middle part of season 2. You realized that in some ways she was just kind of going along with the craziness of what this was. But there were parts in season 2 specifically where they had addressed when Wendy was going on an adventure with them, about how she's been basically building up the stress and the anxiety of this whole situation, and with regards to her family there, to the point where when the Weird Mageddon happens, she actually reverts entirely into the element of her family and becomes that hick, like god of war, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, I've trained with weapons and survival kits and all that. All the things that she was trying to separate herself from over the course of the show, and kind of be like, yeah, they're my family, but I'm never seen with them. Like you never see her with them. She literally avoids them. And then, yeah, she's actually like the goddess of like fire and warfare and survival. And this is who she is. And she can have both. So I really feel like Wendy was a character that we loved so much that we wished we would have got more of more of her,
Mm-hmm.
specifically with regards to kind of her handling the struggle of not
Right.
really identifying with being a part of her family.
And even like the thing of when she talked about how she was having a horrible time at high school, it's like, yeah, let's get into that. Like,
Yeah,
and
that was cool.
And this has to be mentioned, even though it's kind of plot thing, but it's also very much tied to the characters. The way they did the confession, right?
Oh, sure.
I loved that. I loved that so much because okay, having a crush in a story, of course, right? Why not, right? It's great, and it's definitely part of the whole coming of age, thing, right?
Yes.
But the way it was handled, with Dipper needing to basically rack up the courage to actually tell her how he feels, even though he knows it's not really going to go that way.
And then she's like, dude,
I'm way too old for you.
No, also that, but like, I've known you had a crush on me for
exactly.
forever, dude.
Right,
like,
right.
You're not really subtle about
Yeah,
this.
exactly. Like that was, oh man, I love that so much because one of the biggest experiences of my life was when I finally confessed to somebody that I had a crush on for a while, and she didn't like me, and I kind of figured as much, but I still had to say it, right? And I feel like it's too easy in stories to just go for the angle of that the main character has to get the girl or whoever they have a crush on, because that's a really tough thing to go through when it doesn't work out. Your hopes are dashed and all that stuff. Your heart is ripped out of your chest, and, and all
the
that.
End of the world.
Right, it's the end of the world. And because of that, it isn't gone into, or it's saved for like the very end. That way you don't have to, and then it's just they like me, and that's the payoff,
right?
Rather than like the actual characters coming to understand themselves better and things like that.
For sure.
And the way they utilized the shapeshifter, and also the fact that this happened.
Please, let's not talk about the episodes as much.
Okay,
so
let's
wrap on Wendy. We need to talk about a bunch of other characters.
The fact that they did the confession at the beginning of season 2, so that then there could be stuff afterwards to talk about it and have it still be a thing, that is so important. Like, and all the times that they were just hanging out, and it didn't necessarily focus on Dipper's crush. Like, you knew that was a thing that was in the air for him, but it was also them just, hanging out or whatever. Yeah. And there might be occasionally the line of like, dude, you're lying on my bra. Like,
right.
And he's like, oh, but I just, I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I would say is what was something that I'll talk about with all the characters basically from here on out, is that all the characters have some area of confidence in their own identity that Dipper lacks, but because these characters are characters and have a little bit more depth to them than, a caricature, once Dipper gets close to them and starts to get to know them, he realized that their confidence is something that they're kind of putting on airs with. And that's the main, I would say, kind of con artist of the show other than Stan, and that's Gideon. Gideon in this show is kind of, I would say, the next kind of character on the main side character kind of list, because throughout the show he's involved. He's a consistent threat.
Yeah.
He is competent at points.
Yes.
But when you get to know him, you realize, wait, they're tackling multiple like nasty stereotypes about guys, specifically guys, in one character. And then he's also just a petty little bitch. Like there's a whole mess of psychological problems going on in the kid that make you go, oh God, it makes sense why you turn out this way.
Yeah, it's a really good mirror, because like Bill is great as a villain, but you don't have that mirroring with the main characters, right? And Gideon supplies that really well, because one he didn't have someone to call him out on his bullshit, right? He didn't have a Mabel, and two, he also didn't have a Grunkle Stan. Like, it was something where like there are so many things that they get into with Gideon, like episode 4 when they introduce him, was one of like, it was probably there were so many episodes where I'm like,
let's focus on the characters specifically.
It brings up so many like potential personality flaws, not just for people in general and good like commentary on how those things can go, but also for our characters specifically. If they didn't resolve things the way they did, this is another way it could turn out. That kind of a thing.
Yeah, in some ways, I kind of saw Gideon as basically a Mabel that was given so much power that was someone that completely lost sight of reality and how other people are supposed to be valued, members in the reality that you all share.
Yep.
So the way he treats his parents was one of the most gut-wrenchingly, like, I would say mature elements actually about his story, in terms of like whoa, that's because if any of you know kind of what the situation of what a child actor kind of, I would say, would go through, is that when they're being told basically that they're right and they've gotten all these things, going for them, and they start to get a little bit of cognitive ability, a little bit of critical thinking, and so they begin to apply that stuff, and then they get hyper rewarded for it. This is like,
it's Joffrey.
And in some weird alternate kind of universe, you can kind of get the vibe that there was a discussion, because this is something I think it's constantly brought up with child actors, is that they're not allowed to really have access to all that crazy amount of money that they're getting. It's held in their parents' trust or what have you.
Right.
But you can tell there was a point where the kid basically made a deal with the dad, specifically the dad, because the mom he treats even worse. Like, he treats her even far worse. And he's like, you are mine now.
Right.
If you want any of this, old man. If you want any of this at 18, you are going to do exactly what I say. Oh, he's going to one of his rages again. That is the most sickeningly, like, disgusting, but also, I would say, probably realistic in some instances. And how child actors potentially get so screwed up in the head and do so many self-destructive things before they're even, like, fully grown. Like, that was probably just a chilling thing for Gideon for me. And then, no, we're actually going to develop him. We're going to give him an arc of sorts. He doesn't completely change, really, but over the course of the whole show, ridiculously good stuff.
And also, I gotta say, his interactions with Mabel are really good from the standpoint of, like, I would not expect this kind of stuff to be in a Disney Channel like cartoon, like even though like just saying Gravity Falls is a cartoon, that'd be an absolute disservice to the show, right? But the idea that, like, all the things of the bad aspects of the way he would interact with her, and the whole relationship dynamic that he would try and go after and things like that, like, I am very much impressed that was brought up.
And one of the things that's quite common, I would say, in kids, I would say, animated shows and stuff, is that the characters that are the bad guys have to be shown that they're moving the needle towards, especially if they themselves are a kid, moving the needle towards learning what's good. And then either they're being manipulated, or there's something else that keeps them from learning their lesson, or what have you. Gideon doesn't learn his lesson. No, if anything, you start to feel really bad for him as he moves more and more deeper into this, because like you said, he doesn't have a Dipper or a Mabel. This rule of two thing is really important. And then once he actually asks for help, he summons a demon. That was him asking for help. And that was his, by the way, that was his last resort. So you can read into that what you will, is Gideon's last resort is asking for help. But no, he doesn't ask for help from anyone that actually legitimately cares about him. I mean, he summons an interdimensional demon and makes a deal. Oh, yeah,
and Prison Gideon was amazing.
Prison Gideon was amazing. In some ways, maybe Prison Gideon made him learn a little bit, because then he had to, in some ways, form a community, even though it was a very twisted, messed up community.
It was still something where he realized that he
needed
acknowledged
others.
that he needed people.
Yes. So that was the kind of the step towards that. So Gideon's great, but let's talk about the character that's probably the biggest bombshell in the whole show, as far as, like, the humans go. No. Even though this character didn't show up until season 2, this character is probably one of the most important characters plot-wise, so we're not going to go into their plot relevance, but how they were characterized in a way that was really important for going into the themes, but also kind of setting up the parallel for the Pine Twins and the Pine Twins. Stanford. Oh boy, the name itself being a spoiler. The hero that leapt through time, the grandpa that doesn't know if people still use floppy disks, and know,
the one that survived on the other edge of an interdimensional portal to a land of nightmares for 30 years. Which, by the way, like that's crazy.
Yeah, the thing that made McGucket go insane after just a little bit of time, because it was probably the shock of it, he like resolved, I'm in here. I'm going to hold on to my semblance of sanity, and survived that.
Yeah.
This guy is a living legend. If anything, he's the kind of character that I would be worried that would turn this whole show into an action show where he's the spearhead,
too serious,
pushing everything forward.
Takes away from the agency of the main characters.
Exactly. But no, he is probably one of the most subtly flawed individuals in the show, other than Stan. Probably.
Yeah. And I absolutely love how you could tell that something wasn't quite right about him, yet they kept reinforcing that he seems to be a pretty good guy.
Yep.
There's some things like plenty of things where the other characters would start to doubt him, and then he'd be like, no, like this is all good, and you'd see like, oh, maybe they were wrong to doubt him, but hold on, there's something there. There's that aspect of if you look into the abyss might stare back.
Yeah.
And oh boy.
And I want to bring up the fact that this show doesn't tell you who was right or wrong flat out in a black and white way with regards to the two Stans. This is, I think, really important here, is that Stanford really did a number on his brother. He really did.
Yep.
Thing is that it wasn't so black and white that Stanford was wholly bad. It was complicated. It was messy.
Yep.
But the idea that the time that went across that wasn't something that somehow made, them more mature and able to handle the situation there.
In fact, it made it worse.
It made it way worse.
Yeah, because an old wound takes a lot longer to heal,
Yeah.
And what happened in their backstory probably could have been resolved if it was like, okay, no, like if immediately they were like, I'm sorry, that was stupid, I totally know that you didn't mean to do that, all that stuff. Then, a week later, they probably would have forgotten that had ever happened, for the most part, right?
Yeah.
But instead, no. A lifetime for that to just fester.
A generation.
Yep.
Like, this is something where, in terms of the fact that the kids show element kind of doesn't allow you to sit and settle in it, because it's actually just really depressing, is that the show has such a brisk pacing, which I'm a fan of. Stanford as a character doesn't have really too many moments where he kind of sits there and details out to the viewer, who I assume some of them were at least, as young as 7 or 8 or 9, like what kind of is going on here. But when I went and kind of gave a little bit of a skim through those episodes where we realized the backstory and what was going on, but then also the episodes past that where you can see Stanford starting to groom Dipper to replace him, to kind of mold him and manipulate him and shape him, and then starting to isolate him from the rest of his family, basically projecting his own values and ideals onto this kid in a way that is just something that Stan, as we know it, would almost never do. We realize there's an entirely different set of flaws for this guy, even though he has a twin brother that he looks almost exactly the same as, and they both have the same kind of quirky weirdness. Just because his weirdness is quirky and attractive to Dipper, oh my god, and it's not handled so well.
And it's not that it was something that was malicious in any way, right?
No.
He's like, no, you're a bright kid. Like you're actually a bright kid. Yeah, let's apprentice with me and stuff. That's a he's trying to give him the opportunity that he felt was taken away from him when he was young. It's like, this is good stuff, right? And he probably would have been a great master from the master apprentice kind of dynamic,
right?
Yeah, yes. He would have been great at that.
Yes, Remies, we know that this is subconscious. This is not something he's doing intentionally, because none of the characters in this show, except Bill, are just pure evil.
Right.
Like, this is something where people don't know what they don't know.
Right. And that's what makes the character dynamic so good and so interesting, is because then that's how they can actually grow. Because a lot of the times I feel like in stories, like you mentioned, that it never says who's right and who's wrong kind of a thing,
because it's not about who's right and who's wrong.
It's not about who's right and who's wrong.
Right.
And both are right in certain areas probably, and both are wrong in certain areas probably, right? Like there's a reason why that these kinds of disagreements and conflicts happen.
Right.
So it's not about getting to some objective sense where now I am the paragon of rightness or whatever, right? and everyone else is wrong if they disagree, you know, kind of a thing,
Sure.
which is what a lot of stories kind of do.
They do.
You know, with the main characters, which is why having flawed characters is
especially
really
the
important.
antagonists too.
Yes,
Or
especially
characters that start to feel like antagonists for a little bit. Because I'll bet you, and I almost want to ask you, because you guys were involved in the community a lot, how many people, when they were watching the show for the kind of middle parts of season 2, thought that Stanford could potentially become an antagonist via manipulation by Bill Cipher, or just he was starting to give you that vibe? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, because I feel like that was something that was definitely maintained intentionally in the show, is that tension surrounding him and whatnot.
Right.
And yeah, it's the idea that there's the potential for Bill Cipher to take over in anyone, right? In the same way that anyone can shake hands with Bill and make a deal, right? Anyone could get to that point where, even if it's not Bill Cipher, you know, that they go down that darker path.
Right. Yeah. Oh, they had a whole episode of that too. Yeah, that's true. So Stanford, from a character perspective, is probably one of the most important plot-wise with regards to the way things shift from season 1 to season 2. Once things have shifted, though, I think in terms of just what he represents as a character is kind of the old wizard kind of hero.
Sure.
Or kind of, not old wizard kind of hero, old wizard kind of mentor, in that he comes in spouting exposition, giving a whole bunch of knowledge that you have built up to expect to come from him. So it's not unwarranted. You know, it's something where you're actually excited to hear about the exposition in the same way that Dipper was. But when he gives it, and then you start to see his character blend through the exposition, it's something that is consistent with what we saw not only in his backstory, but what you would expect in some ways to be someone that our other Stan couldn't stand. Someone that you realize, oh, yeah, you definitely wouldn't rub well with Stanley.
Actually, if you think about it, because you were saying that Gideon, you were like he seemed like a dark version of Mabel. Like if Mabel had just been allowed to run wild. Sure. In a lot of cases, that Stanford is that for Dipper.
Sure.
Right? Because it's not that, you know, the science stuff or the mystery investigation is bad, but it's not the whole piece. You don't just want to have that, right? You need the Mabel. You need the emotional side where you actually, you know, care about people and things like that. And that's what he was missing, right? And thankfully they still ended up getting it to the point in the show where it was starting to be worked on and resolved. But that was the real sort of danger of Stanford, specifically with regards to Dipper.
Yeah. So that's kind of now the main characters. Now let's get into, I think Bill Cipher, we're going to just, again, leave him in his own category, because he's...
Leave him in his own dimension,
if you will.
Bill Cipher was kind of two-dimensional.
You're free now, Bill. I mean, yeah, but at our behest. Now, there are a lot of townsfolk, tertiary, just characters out there in this show. And this is where I think we should talk about the continuity.
Okay,
like,
sure,
like,
yeah. There
are so many just little character designs that are just running around in the background. Almost all of them have names. Like, this in and of itself is a freaky thing for continuity. Because then, if you give them a voice, and you have them in that setting there, there has to be a legitimate reason as to why they're there.
Oh, yeah. And what I love about this is that because it's in the setting of the tiny small town, you should see things like this, right?
Yeah.
Like that really adds to the environment and the atmosphere. And maybe it's like me and Caleb spent our summers for quite a few years in a town with like under 400 people.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
totally.
that kind of feeling is something that we were very much like, yep, I know what this feels like.
Yep.
Okay. But it also is just adding more for your audience to be able to pick up on. You know, they don't need to get invested in, you know, whoever the head and chin guy was in the bar, you know.
But there are some of them.
Like
Pacifica, Robbie,
the two cops, you know.
The two cops.
Like
where it ends up getting into a point where you're like, oh my god, wait, no, we're actually going there. We're
Get him.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, someone said during the Comey reading that I've used a voice similar to the Get Him guy, and I saw that, and I was like, I can't answer that because we're not done with the show yet. I don't want people to start talking about it just yet. But yeah, you know, things like that, or the you know,
Toby,
look, it's
Toby determined.
yeah.
You know, to be determined. Yeah.
Right. Look, it's a zombie. No, it's just me. Like,
Well, now, where are we going today?
I love Toby Determined.
Man.
I love that in the show where we have all these ridiculous, also side, I would call them just tertiary characters. I think calling Robbie, McGucket, and maybe Pacifica tertiary characters is a little bit harsh.
Yeah, they're probably side
They're more side characters, but the thing is that their characterization is so subtle, especially for characters like McGucket and I would say particularly McGucket, until you start to realize, oh, he's not just a comic relief character. A lot of the things that they were setting up do end up getting expounded upon when we get to his backstory via the info we get from Stanford. Characters like Pacifica and Robbie have a lot more screen time, so we get opportunity to go, oh yeah, they're people, and they kind of are there to be kind of the awkward bully antagonists for both Mabel and, you know, Dipper.
Mm-hmm.
So their archetypes are a little bit, you know, obvious in that regard. But when they start to flip the script on things, and this is the part I actually think is really genius. This had to be intentional. The moments where Mabel goes to see Robbie and Dipper interacts with Pacifica lead to some of the best moments of characterization for the respective bully antagonists.
I hadn't made that
secondary
connection.
characters there.
Like I saw that with Dipper and Pacifica, you know, because that whole episode was great.
Yep. But yeah, that also was the case with Robbie.
Yeah.
Robbie you end up going to his home and you realize how different his family is, that he is violently rejecting in some ways their normalcy, even though they're not actually that normal. His parents are kind of
dissonantly
creepy.
Normal. Like,
Like,
people are, you know, I think about 50 people just died. Yay!
Get back there, zombie. No.
Yeah.
I loved the dissonance of seeing, and this is another thing, it was both with regards to families too. That both of those characters came from a family that didn't necessarily mold them, but they allowed themselves in some ways to be, I would say, manipulated in a way that they didn't really see as manipulation until it was, you know, addressed.
Although,
that's more specifically with Pacifica, though.
Yeah. Can I just say, like, that whole bit with the bell with Pacifica,
that
holy shit,
like
that
was
so chilling in some ways that I
like there are some rules about, I would say, specifically fathers in storytelling. When you have a father character, there's the line of like petulant things that they're not allowed to do, otherwise they go into send them to the abyss, burn them, quarter them, everything. I do not care what happens to them. And the main one I was to say is basically abuse towards children, specifically. That's like tier 1. Once the father delves into anything like that, they have violated everything that makes them supposed to be, you know, a father. I would say that the next tier goes into the absentee, kind of manipulative kind of side of things, and that's where Seuss's father kind of occupies.
Oh, sure.
Which is bad, because they ended up basically abandoning them. Right. But the worst part is the present father that is the abuser.
Yeah.
They are manipulating their power in a way that is absolutely abhorrent, and a lot of us can identify with that. Because even if we didn't experience the exact same thing, we know what it's like to have someone in a position of power that we are stuck with abuse that power against us. And so, yeah, that's why the bell is so screwed up.
And I think this is an example, and we're not going to talk about this in depth now, but of where the fact that it's something so simple, you know, it's just a bell. You know, he never hits her or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it's something simple and in this cartoon animation makes it so much more disturbing. Because then it's something where it's basically coming into those happy times and into that place where it's almost like it's saying, this shouldn't surprise you.
Right.
This just blends in.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
He's just got a little bell.
Sure.
You know? And it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
no.
I remember watching that for the first time with Jacob and my brother was shocked at how violently we reacted to that, because he was like it'd been a while since he'd like seen the show, so he was like, the bell, what the, oh, and in like 3 seconds he was immediately kind of like, oh yeah, you're right, oh my god. And it's so cool that if you haven't seen the show for like 3 or 4 years or something like that, you kind of don't remember all the little details and stuff, but this is the kind of attention to detail that it's like, oh yeah. So that's, I would say, the 2 most important towns members. But McGucket.
Yeah.
We briefly touched upon him earlier, but this is an example of a character where it's like, we only have really enough time to just give him a backstory, but he's going to be constantly weaving through all the plots, and you realize, he was a regular guy. He did have a mind that was his own at some point, and he lost it. And I think he's an example in some ways of the Stanford casualties. The Stanford has a specific goal in mind, and yeah, I'm doing this for the betterment of everyone, but there's going to be some casualties along the way.
And it wasn't something where he directly caused the casualty that is McGucket.
That's
right?
true.
That was something where McGucket did that to himself.
He took that risk, yeah.
Well, yeah, he took the risk, but then also, like, it was something that was accidental, right?
Oh,
Going
totally
into the
accidental
portal in the first place. And then with the memory erasing, that was McGucket actively doing that. Like that's one of the things that I feel like makes it hit a lot harder, because when another character or force or whatever breaks a character, right? When it's external, that's one thing. But when something breaks on the inside of them that causes them to break themselves, I feel like that hits way harder, because that's what we do. That's what we do. All those times when, stuff is happening in life or whatever, and we get to that point where we make some decision, our thought process goes down a certain way, and we end up doing things that aren't good for us. It might not be wiping our memories until we're, a crazy person that, doesn't even have much going on up there, right? Like the fact that the memory gun didn't work on him was both great and chilling. So
you can't break what's already broken.
Yeah.
Like that was a good episode. But McGucket as a character, I think, was one where he could have been just the crazy old kook. And I would liken this world building kind of essence that he occupies as the same kind of thing that in fantasy stories, usually the ones that are spouting off the nonsense, you can't afford to have their nonsense actually be nonsense, because then that would be wasted space on the page.
Yes.
So you have some part of it be right. McGucket was a screaming point of just saying, things have happened to people in this town, and you have no idea what it is.
Even the fact that he was building like the monsters and the machines and everything, it's like, okay, it's funny as just sort of a joke of, it's a robot, and McGucket
and we need an episodic conflict.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's like, wait a minute.
If we're taking all these characters seriously,
then what? And there's that UFO cutout from like the cliffs and everything.
Well, that's in season 2.
Right. But given all of that stuff, McGucket doing his thing, maybe it's not just a joke.
Yep. And that is basically the standard that is held to, with none of these characters get backstories, but to all the townsfolk. There are so many little throwaway lines where you're like, oh, someone, probably Hirsch, created a character profile for every one of the towns members, and while a lot of them just, say their line, get them, some of them have actual little side stories going on that, they don't have the time to give them.
The two cops.
Yeah, it was Officer Blubbs and...
oh, man, I don't remember.
What are the name of the cops? Dang it.
But, at first I was like, okay, here's the stupid cops.
You mean the best ship in the whole show, actually?
No. Deputy Durling, that's
right. Deputy Durling!
Yes.
Oh, yes.
But, they were great. At first they I was kind of like, okay, they're fun, but let's not just have them just be stupid for the sake of being stupid. Okay, when are we going to get something a bit more than that? But their dynamic.
They love each other.
They really love each other.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, what's that line where it's like the dude, or every day with you is a dream, or something like that.
I think he says, with you, Derlin, every day is a blessing. Or
Yes,
something like
yeah,
that.
something like
And he's
that.
just calling him Derling.
Yeah.
Like, we're not,
Yeah.
it's not super subtle what
Yes.
you're doing here. Like, I love that Hirsch, in some ways, he understands that, yeah, I'm on Disney Channel. There's no way I'm going to get this out there. But God damn it, I'm going to try. So... yeah, it's beautiful.
And going on the vacation and everything. And
yeah, and then even having ones like the Irrational Treasure episode where they're a legitimate force of the U.S. government there to keep the secrets intact, although they're only dealing with the things that, you know, are aware on the surface. They don't know about the actual, like, crazy stuff going on.
Right.
So I love that they thought, you know, along this time that they're like, yes, this is our thing we've been training for all this time. So they even do kind of get a backstory episode.
And I also got to say, that episode kind of shifts them from their original dynamic of being like the cops, you know, and all that stuff,
right,
to something different where it's like, okay, the idea of them sort of keeping the secrets, you know, down and stuff,
sure,
that's kind of over at this point. They're the cops that are there. They're a bit derpy, you know, and they care about each other very much, but they're not antagonistic past that point, I feel like.
Yeah, not really. Like, there's points where they make jokes about it. Like, do you have a permit for setting off those fireworks? It's like, do you have a permit to be lame? And he's like, yeah, you've got a point. And then they walk away immediately. Or like, we've got a complaint about the noise, you know, in this party, and we want in.
Yeah,
so like,
right.
Welcome to your dreams, and then she gives them the little blowers and stuff. You know, there's a lot of little lines and stuff like that. Those are really good. But then across the show, you have a bunch of kind of really small characters that have their shtick. Like Blendon, for instance, the time traveler. Yeah, he's very much, I would say, a relevant character for the plot.
Yep.
But I mean, well, he has a voice, and my name is Blendon.
Yeah.
Like he's not a really
ruined my lives.
Right.
I challenge you to Blargnack or something
like that. Yeah, is a great gag character, but the fact that they made sure to put him in scenes of the show before you had been introduced to him to show that he was time traveling.
Yeah,
like there's 8 episodes that go by before we even get to know him, and he's in like 4 of them, just casually there doing stuff.
And I gotta say, the way they do it is fantastic, because like on the one where it's the second episode where they introduce McGucket, the way they have him in there is McGucket just runs past a bunch of people, and he's just one of the people there. It's not so there's a bunch of stuff actively happening so that you wouldn't
focus on him.
You wouldn't be focused on it. Right. Like, it's not like, oh, there's an empty field, and then you see his like head pop out from behind a tree, right? Like that'd be pretty obvious if you actually saw it, right? Yeah. But here you might see it, but you don't have any grid.
It doesn't mean anything to you.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything to you.
Yeah. And that kind of continuity is held for, like we were just saying again, across all the characters of the show. Okay. As far as characters in this show that need like no introduction for those that are Gravity Falls fans, because in some ways this character type I have never seen done so well in anything ever.
I love him so much.
I love him and hate him and love him again so much. Bill freaking Cipher is one of the best chaos demon god villains of all time.
This is why you want a chaos god, not a destruction god.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yes.
Like this kind of a thing, and the like, oh man. Because we've talked about how the force of nature enemy it's something that you can do. It works in Lord of the Rings,
but
right?
It gets a little
But it gets a bit old. It gets a bit bland and stale and things like that, right? Yeah. But when you think about it, what you really want for your characters is just an engaging personality.
Yeah.
Right?
You just want presentation!
Presentation!
Yep.
And Bill, my God, does that perfect combination of, I am a force of, like, I literally summon Cthulhu, you know, and invoke all kinds of destruction and things like that and madness and whatnot. And also, I talk with a happy voice, and I've got my hat and my, you know, and everything. Right. And like,
he is a mishmash of the kind of the Cthulhu, like Lovecraftian horror being, cute, artsy little like triangle thing with, ho, yeah, I've got a little top hat. And then, like, Deadpool fourth wall breaking.
Yeah, like...
And then all the way down to, like malevolent, chaotic evil.
Yeah, like his line in his introductory episode of like, oh look, it's a talking 2-dimensional puppet, you know, like or whatever it was. It's like, yep, all right, there we go, you know, and like showing things that aren't like cartoon animated and stuff when he does the lots of things.
Yeah,
it's
and
like
he shows nuclear war and UFOs and you know
all that
JFK
stuff, and it's like
stuff.
Okay, all right, yeah, and the murder chair, like the.
So if you're watching this show like over again, I think in some ways this might be something that you need to kind of really think back to what it was like. But think back to when he is introduced and summoned specifically by Gideon. The thing that maybe Jacob and I have said over and over again, and this is something that I think is more of an anime thing than just a general character thing, because anime is a little bit over the top.
Sure.
Compared to live action.
Yeah.
But if we're going to use the medium of animation, why not really go into it and make it over the top?
Yep.
His character introduction is so perfectly encapsulating his character. And so dramatic that when you see him tear open reality, slow down time, start to basically engage with, you know, Gideon in this way.
Rip a deer's teeth out.
Rip a deer's teeth out. Yeah. Teeth
like,
out. Yeah.
Like that's like that. Okay. Long before it got to that point in the show, we had clearly been shown many times that this show was not going to adhere to the traditional Disney cartoon limitations, right? And it was going to do it in some really cool ways, right? But that was a thing of like, oh God, like, all right, okay, we are crossing into new territory from something that was already unexpected territory.
Yes,
if that makes sense. Like where we were expecting them to push the bounds, and then it's like, all right, and then later we get things like, you know, the orifice, you know, rearrangement and things like that, and like, okay, yeah, this is a chaos demon god thing. Yes, okay,
and we can't beat him.
We can't beat him.
No.
Yeah,
he is a being of pure energy. He is immortal, and he. I actually really liked in some ways how affable, charismatic, and just likable he was. Actually, there's a bunch of moments where we see him interact with, you know, Dipper and Mabel for the first time. And he's like, "Hey, pine tree, shooting star," and Seuss as well. Question mark? Yeah, I had a feeling I'd bump into you guys. And you get this vibe like, oh, he's giving them cute nicknames,
right?
But literally everything out of Bill's mouth is either a fourth wall breaking joke or something you should pay very close attention to.
Right.
Because they are giving a lot with his character here, not just with regards to his characterization, but he sometimes just spits the plot out. Just like, yeah, I'm voiced by the writer. That's why I'm allowed to look at the script and be
and I'm the writer's probably normal voice.
That's true.
There's Grunkle Stan and Seuss. Those are some very distorted voices, right? I don't think that's how Alex Hirsch actually talks, right?
I think he probably sounds closest to Bill.
Pretty sure he sounds pretty close to Bill.
Yeah.
And and it's the idea of his positivity, right? And his general amiableness with the fact that he is dark and twisted and does horrible things. Like, that's so much better than someone that's brooding, dark, and trying to be horrible.
Oh, yeah.
But someone who's just like, oh yeah, hey, you want some deer teeth? Yeah, there you go. Those are for you. You know, like, okay.
Right. You get the vibe when characters do this, because this is maybe a curse of shows that fall into this trap. And Jacob's identified this rather well with regards to the way characters make plans in stories. Is that if you see a character making a plan, odds are the plan is not going to work. Because if they're going to waste time, so to speak, giving you exposition about how they're going to do things and how detailed it's going to be, then they're doing that so that you understand the mechanisms as to how it's not a perfect plan.
Right, or when it fails, why?
Right.
You know.
But with the Chaos Gods specifically, all you know is that the reality you see around them is at the whim of this thing, and this thing isn't fully knowable.
Right.
We know that it likes to cause chaos. It likes to have fun doing that, and it has ego. Like, it has emotions and ways that it can get angry.
Right.
But it is not a human being. Well, it is not something that is so simply quantified.
And I love that Bill is never explained, for one. We never get the explanation of what he is or things like that, right? But also, like, I said the personality before, but I'm going to say it again because whenever you get into god territory, right, it is very difficult to have a god that has any kind of personality.
True.
If they do, it's very hard to have them still feel like they're a god being, right?
Right.
You get into more of like the Greek gods and things like that, right? Where
They
it's
just
like
want to put their dick in things.
they just want to put their dick in things, and there's like hundreds of them. You know, like okay, why are you special, right?
Yeah.
But in the case of Bill, and especially with a chaos god, like he really just feels like a trickster. He's not wanting to consume the world in tentacles. Well, he is wanting to consume the world in tentacles.
But he wants to have fun while he's doing it.
And the idea of a chaos god having fun, that is terrifying. That is terrifying. When it's I will do this because I am the brother.
And I'm going to bring my chaos dimension to this area. And then ha 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 ha.
What? You know, like...
Yes, I need to feed on your dimension, so I will bring my chaos dimension. Galactus. I mean...
Just, please, stop. Like, take my teeth out already. But with Bill, it's like, he wants
He cares.
something. He cares.
He cares.
Yeah, he cares. He really cares in some twisted ways, and because it's also in ways that you don't fully understand of why he cares, whenever he does something, it's compelling because he cares.
Right.
But because his cares are very whimsical, it doesn't give you any like hint into what he's going to do next, right? I guess maybe that's the other aspect about the Chaos Gods. It's you always know what they're going to try and do. Bring the chaos to end all things or whatever, right? Whereas him, it's like, oh, I got a body. Let me go, like, stick my arm in a drawer and, like, bang it on the arm over and over again because I can feel pain.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, that part where he takes over Dipper,
Ooh.
there are a couple things that we'll get into thematic-wise that I think are way more insidious and darker than the show immediately lets on with just the idea of possession in general. But, Bill is probably the perfect villain. I think once I got just a scene with him through Dreamscaperers and stuff, I was like, I want to put him in my D&D campaign.
Yep, same here. I had that exact same thought.
I want to run a campaign with literally Bill Cipher as just the one behind the scenes after all is said and done.
He randomly goes and just erases things on their character sheet or whatever.
Puts a little pyramid with an eye in it.
Like,
hey,
Oh,
your agility is now a 6. Have fun with that.
Right.
You now have the trait which is you can only look to the left,
Right. Oh, and also one of the things that I think was really important, this is again an episode thing, but it's something that shows what kind of a thing Bill is. Mabel's prison. Like the whole part where he's like, "Oh, that is my most diabolical prison I've ever come up with." That shows that he's creative, right?
Oh, sure.
He's not just chaos for the sake of chaos.
Yeah.
He's going to be an artist about it, right? Like, it's not just I'm a chaos god, therefore tentacles are everywhere. They're all look the same, and you all just disappear and die or whatever. It's no orifice rearrangement. Does he just spend eternity thinking up these things? Like,
no,
probably.
I think it's more impulsive, where he's just like,
sure.
Oh, it'll be fun.
Yeah,
you talk kind of funny.
This is why I love Bill so much. He's a fae.
Oh, sure.
So I've talked before about how much I
Lovecraftian fae.
Yeah, Lovecraftian fae, where I hate fae creatures, right? Because there's the idyllic sort of we're cute fairies or whatever, but then it's the your eyes are so pretty, let me pull them out of your head, right? Like where it's like, oh god, no, get away, no, like kill it with fire. And Bill personifies that also with ultimate power,
right?
Like, all right,
yeah,
all right, yeah.
And as far as a villain that was set up in a way to show how they could be defeated through the mindscape. That was something that didn't feel like a Deus Ex Machina. It felt earned. It felt rewarding to know that because he is an avatar, when he crosses through and actually makes Weirdmageddon happen, he is going to be bringing his physical body there. That is in and of itself a weird thing, but he's still a being of pure energy. But then even more, when he enters your mind, he has to become a part of that mental dreamscape or what have you, because he's also kind of a nightmare god in that respect. Like, he likes to bring the nightmares.
Yeah.
That's also perfect. So the way he went out,
yes,
that was also just really good.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's the final character for Gravity Falls in order to give kind of some analysis on. But let's just kind of talk about the show, like, because we've spent all this time talking about that, but the show itself, there's still a lot to go over here.
There is a lot. Yeah.
So the plot, let's go with the episodic kind of nature of the show and
Sure.
really give it its due praise there.
Mhm.
This is an episodic show that is really good at doing episodic stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the best episodes tend to be the episodic ones, actually.
Oh yeah, like one of the things that I feel like made this show work so well for the episodic nature is how much care was put into each episode to make it so that that episode on its own could really be a lot of fun, right, and relevant. That's
True.
shown with the characters that are brought in one episode and the random characters that are like they keep going throughout the town later, but also with the lessons. Like with the idea of Mabel and Dipper being the two main characters, them being siblings and twins, it feels like there's something that they're consistent. Like every episode, there's some lesson that they learn. Sometimes multiple, if each of them needs to learn a different one or whatever. And because the kids are 12, it makes sense that they're learning them because they're 12. But the lessons are not like the traditional kind of lessons that I would assume from just a cartoon that's just trying to sort of be something for the kids to watch, but not actually have any quality to it. Yeah, there's still things that like I'm glad that it goes into. I like thinking about that stuff and getting reminded about those sorts of things. It's like, all right, yeah, this is good stuff. To where it's something that the other episodes wouldn't necessarily have, because like in the worst examples in my mind, if you have like say a murder mystery episodic kind of a thing, it's just okay, who's the murderer, right?
Right.
And you have something there, and then you have some witty banter with the characters in order to keep it fresh, right? There you go. That's it, right? In this one, it's like, because what better thing can stories do than to come out of the story and to affect you in a way in your own personal life? Sure. Whether it's with you thinking about the story after it's done, or realizing, you know what, I can take that and I can I can apply it in my own life, right? Yep. By doing that, it's something where, in a lot of ways, even though there are some episodes that are like better than others,
or like more kiddish lessons.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of easy, obvious.
Right. It's something where there's something unique to each episode. Right. You're not going to get that same lesson, and certainly not in the same way, in another episode.
Right. And this is where I would say the episodic stuff gets into some really good things, is that Hirsch, like definitely when he was creating this, carries the theme of, I would say, kind of questioning things as being like a big portion of the story. So he pokes a lot of fun at conspiracy theories and a whole bunch of other kind of presupposed standards with regards to things, and then makes the kids just kind of react to them and end up maybe coming to some conclusions on things. Sometimes the conclusions aren't so straightforward, but especially in the first season, a lot of them tend to be ones where you realize that, oh, some of these actually apply to other characters that just didn't happen to be there for the actual lesson. Oh. And this is where I would say the whole rule of two thing is going to be very apropos. Go back and rewatch this show and realize how many kind of dual dynamic. This is just basically, it's just the relationship. One character connecting with another. Yeah. But it is used so much to set up the foreshadowing of the overarching narrative, which is quite, I would say, sparse in terms of its delivery, especially in season 1. And then that's when things change in season 2, and you can tell that they needed to finish the show, so a lot more overarching narrative stuff then comes through. And it delves into the fact that they've been paralleling Dipper and Mabel to set up for Stanford and Stanley. Right. So
one of the other things that I think was really cool that they did in this show is the way that they addressed certain things that were uncomfortable in the show, of like, why is that happening? Like with Wendy's friends, the kid that was constantly getting like
Thompson.
Thompson. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, oh man, that sucks that they're doing that. Like, okay. But I feel like it's also one of those like lessons that isn't necessarily portrayed as a lesson. No. Because it's saying, hey, does this seem cool? Does this seem fine?
You think about it.
You think about it. Yeah. But that's something that happens, right? Yep. It's something that happens a lot of the time, and the people that are doing it don't realize that they're doing it. Yep. And there never comes a point where comes into conflict with something else strong enough in order for them to actually take a look at it.
Well, no. Thompson specifically has a look at it in the concert episode where he then realizes I've been their joke.
Okay. Yes.
I've been the butt of their jokes for like 3 years so that I could keep these friend group. I don't want to go back to being alone.
Right.
So he's aware of what he's doing.
Oh yeah, yes. For Thompson, definitely, but for like the others, and I feel like it's good. It's like a mix of like social commentary and lessons, where it's basically saying, hey, we'll throw this thing out there that can kind of get some jokes, like get some laughs, but then it's also oh, yeah, okay,
we'll think about that.
Yeah, we'll think about that. And you don't have to, because the plot of the show doesn't hinge on it, right?
Right.
But it's there for you if you're paying attention.
Yeah, and I think that's the nature of the show. There's a lot of things in the episodic nature of the show that are there if you're wanting to pay attention to something that much. And that is why I would say, just looking at stuff now that we finished the show, this is an obsessive fandom in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things about fandom that are obsessive in a way that is detrimental to the fandom itself. Mm-hmm. Like, it basically turns a lot of them into like gatekeepers and stuff like that.
And I could potentially see that happening with this show, maybe,
Oh, but I completely don't see it as actually being a majority problem at all,
neither.
Because a lot more people are probably like, one of us. You've now like crossed the boundary.
Yeah.
And even, if people have like bad takes or takes that they disagree with basically on a thing in the show, the fact that they then basically get to then go and do the digging, that's really exciting.
Yep.
So this is something that we'll get into, and we've already gotten to it a bunch, but then we're going to tie in this stuff back to the characters, and that is just the plot of this story. It is an episodic story, but it does have a main narrative plot, and it is pretty much delivered consistently across whenever they give focus to the main three characters. That's why we kind of talk about them first: Mabel, Dipper, and Stanley. When they are all kind of in the focus of the story there, you end up getting the real, like, hardline, main, single story narrative that interweaves all three of the characters involved, because maybe it's, Stan's backstory, but the backstory has to be told to someone that doesn't necessarily know it, so they then basically get to be involved through that. And yet the plot is not something that is just hey, this is just another type of episodic thing. We just dragged it out a little bit longer. This is something that the characters are actively shaping by their influence in said plot.
Right. The plot nature of the show might be episodic with some linear throughout for the main stuff.
Right.
But the main story of the show, like with any good story, is about the characters, and that is not episodic. Right? They're like, or it might have an episodic lesson or way that they grow within that episode, of course, right?
Gotcha.
But it's not something that like recycles or or things like that. Like they are actively growing each and every time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is the focus, and I feel like that's part of why it really works.
Yeah. Because
otherwise it would feel very slow. If it wasn't something where the characters were growing and things like that, the jokes and whatnot would still be fun, but.
Mm-hmm. And then this is the part where the show, I would say, is a little bit different in how it handles pacing with regards to the plot, in that in the first season, it is a lot slower. And when I say slower, it is a lot slower than it is in season 2.
Yeah.
In season 2, things get accelerated while they still maintain the episodic nature of a lot of the show.
Yep.
A lot of the things that they've been holding back on giving you answers for are suddenly just being thrown at you every other episode. And there's a lot of them. Now, one of the things that's really exciting about this is because the first season really has so much foreshadowing and setup there, it makes the first season in some ways really exciting to rewatch, because then you go back with all the ammo that you got from season 2 and go back there and realize, yes, not only is there the thing that points to it there, but there is nothing in the show that contradicts the thing that was set up to be there. Now, I haven't gone and analyzed every frame of the show, so I can't say that with certainty, but there's nothing that comes to mind. And that is, I would say, difficult, to say the least. It would be very easy to just forget a thing, accidentally throw in a thing that doesn't fit the narrative as you wanted it to be revealed later. And that's just the incredible nature of the continuity with regards to the show.
Oh, yeah. One of the other things that I really appreciated about the second season, because we had been told actually that the second season, it was originally going to be 3 seasons, and they had to finish it in the second season, you know?
Yeah.
But while I could notice that the second season was definitely much faster paced than the first, it didn't feel rushed. It still felt like it was able to take its time with some of those episodes where it's, all right, we're going to be doing this thing that has relevance to the overarching story, but it's still kind of that self-contained episode, you know?
Right.
And I am really glad that happened, because I would have hated for it to be something where it's like, okay, first season, here we go, you know, and then second season, like, you know, let's move, we got to get through all of this. Like, the amount of time that they were able to spend just on Weird Mageddon, right? While still, but if you think about where the first season ended, like the first season ended with just he's able to start up the portal, right? But we still had to have all the portal stuff happen, be introduced to Stanford, get their backstory, all of this stuff happens, you know, and then have Weird Mageddon happen, and then get the resolution to it. Like there was a lot of stuff that happened in there, and yet it didn't feel like it was jam-packed, right?
Yeah. So I think in terms of, you know, if you were sharing the show with people there, one of the things that would probably be the most contentious is that the plot is going to look different depending on where in the show you're at. And that's probably why I would say Grunkle Stan is my favorite character now, is because I finished the show. Grunkle Stan was not my favorite character throughout a large majority of the show. I mean, a large majority of the show. Looking back on the whole story there, you realize where a lot of attention and detail and focus and energy and heart went into a character that was going to get insane amounts of focus in season 2, retroactively applying onto all the stuff we saw in season 1 that maybe looked a little bit chaotic, and you go, oh no, there's a pattern here, there's a very real human here that's messed up and really broken inside. Plot ends up going to a fantastic conclusion. You mentioned Weird Mageddon. Y'all, they gave Disney Channel kids, Disney Channel Disney Channel viewing kids got their own Berserk Eclipse.
Yeah.
Their own Gynax ending. Like an actually good Gynax ending.
And by the way, weirdly enough, I see this as, or it felt more disturbing for me than the Berserk Eclipse.
Yeah, I don't want to make that comparison.
Like not because the things that were happening were darker, and this might be because I was spoiled on the Berserk Eclipse before I watched Berserk, right? But the idea of all this stuff happening in a kids show, right? It just made it all feel so much more wrong. Like where it was like, all right, this is happening. Like, cause I feel like a lot of stories, like, there's, you know, the term like edgy, not saying Berserk Eclipse is edgy, but where you can have it, you can reach a point where it feels like it's doing it for the sake of shock value, and it kind of, your brain sort of shuts off to it because it's being so over the top and disturbing, right?
Right, yeah.
Whereas in this case, the fact that they had all the fun, happy moments and all that stuff interspersed throughout it kept me from going to that place, right? Like Devilman Crybaby, there was a point where it's just like, oh god, this is horrible. It's horrible. Like this is horrible, right?
Yeah.
With this, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're back to happy fun times and hope and, you know, adventure, and this is gonna be great. And then
the sky tears open.
You know, the orifice rearrangement. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, all right, okay.
We are an apocalypse show
This
now.
is happening. Yeah.
Like, there was something, pun intended, otherworldly about the fact that they use the medium of animation to completely change the color palette, to completely change the style of animation in the to changing almost everything about the show, just like Bill promised everything would change.
Yeah.
The fact that Bill also, you know, because we could go into a little bit of analysis regarding Bill's character kind of being having some kind of a soul somewhere in there. But yeah, with Weird Mageddon, I think we more get to see just him at his best, just having fun, having a playground, and just getting to do whatever he wants.
with actual Cthulhu just walking around.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah, that was
like-
great. Yeah.
Like there were so many little touches to this show that really made it clear it was a passion project, right? It wasn't just something that people were doing because they figured out something that would be really popular and really
Right.
successful. No. It's like someone was behind this that was like, all right, how can I make this even more awesome?
Yeah.
Hey, Cthulhu. Let's throw Cthulhu in there because why not? You know?
Yeah. So as far as shows that ended on their own terms, anime never does this.
Uh-huh.
Like you can count on like well, one, what anime have you watched that have ended? That's its own
Place for in the universe.
No, I mean like ended but not got canceled, you know, like where we're just waiting for another season. I mean like where it was a series finale.
Uh-huh.
You can count on one hand probably.
I fight that, but
I know. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like in terms of them, like it's a very small
Right.
list.
but when it happens,
But when
it's
it happens
really
well,
special.
it's really special.
Yeah, like if it happens, even if it doesn't happen well, it's still like memorable, right? When it happens and it happens well, oh man, like there are some. Don't crucify me, but there's a part of me that actually kind of likes this ending more than the Airbender ending.
Oh, okay.
And I can't believe I'm actually saying that, but like, but it perfectly hit that level of resolve everything that needs to be resolved, not necessarily show all the details of how all the stuff plays out, right?
Sure.
Like Grunkle Stan and Stanford go off on their adventure, right?
Yeah.
We don't see that happen, but we know it's happening, and that's the important thing, right?
Right.
Which by the way, I love because that is the kind of thing that would take a lot of time. You don't just do that, right? And there was all this complicated stuff that was going on, so that I really wanted to see how it was going to go because I wasn't sure. And then it was done.
Yeah.
And they even addressed the whole idea of the void with summer's over, you got to go home. And it's but what if I don't want to go home? It's like, well, that's the next step. That's part of growing up, you know.
Yeah.
And but see you next summer, Dipper. You know, like I
Yeah. So with this ending, we can kind of add it to the shows where it's like, not only did it have a good ending, like it had an ending, we can end it to the list of like, as far as animated shows, just in general, Western, Eastern, what have you. This has one of the best endings out there.
Yep. Because
Because not only was it one that was properly built up, given enough time to kind of be its own finale kind of mini series, which it kind of was. It was pretty long. It was like a 2.5 hour finale or something, like 2 hours. I don't know.
something like that.
Yeah,
It was a
around.
while.
It was over 2 hours, I think. But it was a while. Give a lot of the characters, not all of them, but a lot of the characters special focus to be able to do a specific thing, have some fun within the finale of evil, dark, chaotic horrors, then also deliver on the chaotic, dark, evil horrors.
Right.
Have a satisfying emotional conclusion to the arc for the 2 sets of main characters at this point. The 2 twins, you know?
Oh,
And actually, like, reward us viewers who have been waiting for that with something that I was genuinely shocked that they did.
Also,
And even though, I just want to bring this up real quick. Even though what they did with Stan was, like, quickly solved, like, fixed, you know? In terms of what happened to Stan at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I'm not spoiling here, but I'm just trying to make the point that, like, I feel like there's still some people in here that haven't watched the show. But anyway, even that getting resolved within like 3 minutes of doing that was something that I very much enjoyed, that they were willing to go for it, and then having it be something where it was family that brought them all back together at the end. It was really good.
And properly showing the impact of that, of what happened on his family, because Stan had the whole thing of the family that doesn't care about him, right? They can't even tell that he's not his other brother, right? You know, like, so, and then, when if we were to not have you anymore, this is what it would do to us. This is what it would do to us. And I also have to say, I absolutely love how they ended the whole thing with Dipper and Wendy of the parting words of, because it's it's not a you're only 3 years difference or anything like that, right? It's the, hey, I really care about you, man. Like, it's not changing the situation.
Yes.
But it's basically saying, but you're still a person that's very important to me.
Right.
And, here's something to remember me by, given the hat.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was awesome. And see you next summer.
Yeah,
like,
I think the emotional ending was the biggest part, really, like, for me, and when it all is said and done. There was a very heartfelt, emotional aspect to the fact that we were saying goodbye to Gravity Falls as the characters were literally saying goodbye to Gravity Falls and all the people in it.
Yeah, Sue's getting the hat in the shop.
There's so many moments, there's so many moments that you could tell that Hirsch was just trying to make sure he could just shove in there and actually have it feel like it wasn't just crammed and stuff. There are so many moments there.
Oh, yeah, and the Waddles with the bus, no animals on the bus. Brass knuckles and Glock, and it's like, okay, take the front seat.
Yeah, for sure. In some ways, grasses a lot of the emotional resolution to things in Avatar: The Last Airbender, though, happened over the course of many episodes, not just the finale.
Yeah.
But I, in some ways, will say that nothing in Gravity Falls made me cry as much as Iroh and Zuko reuniting. So I kind of hard disagree on the comparing the emotional resolutions, because, like, yeah, sure, more characters get an emotional resolution in Gravity Falls because there's more characters.
Well, but I would say, though, that, like, the Iroh Zuko thing is like 70% of the emotional payoff of the finale.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. It's a bigger emotional resolution than, in my opinion, anything. So I don't see it as a worthy comparison.
Oh, man.
So there's no way do we need to compare the two here. They're both amazing masterpieces of animation. So, okay, calm down. This is something that we have been kind of building up to, kind of talking about here, that in terms of what separates this show from a lot of other, I would say, mature, well-handled animated shows, is the underlying stuff, the themes.
Yeah.
The fact that we are watching a kid's cartoon.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people see that as a derogatory thing. Oh, it's a kid's show. No, it's not a derogatory thing.
It's not just a kid's show.
Well, but just like saying the show is a comedy, Gravity Falls isn't just a comedy.
Right.
It has a genre.
Yeah.
So there's certain things you expect of that genre. But it does so many other things in addition to that. So, how in the heck did this show come to be? That's the thing that I still don't have an answer to. And I almost want to open up the discussion entirely, just because there's not much else to discuss, really, in terms of Gravity Falls, in terms of, like, broad stroke things. But there is this aspect of that they put so much into this show that you could spend years and years poring over it, analyzing it, and getting stuff out of it.
Okay, thank you, GLaDOS. You brought something up that I wanted to mention, but I totally forgot about, with regards to the plot being connected very closely to the characters. The fact that Weirdmageddon only came about because of the miscommunication between Mabel and Dipper about the future, right? Because this show is a coming of age story, so it makes sense that it would revolve around that, right? And the idea that because in some cases it might seem like the show is setting things up that Dipper was essentially wrong to want the apprenticeship, right?
Sure.
And that, and the resolution is, I'm not going to take the apprenticeship. Now, it was still, in the end, a good thing for him not to take the apprenticeship. Stanford wasn't ready for that, and, and all of that stuff and whatnot. Personally, I would have loved it if they both were just like, let's both be apprentices or whatever. But the idea that thing that came in between them there, even though it wasn't something where it was like Dipper was totally set against it, he just didn't fully understand where Mabel was at. And because there wasn't communication about it, Bill was able to take advantage of that. And the fact that that actually did have consequences for it. It wasn't something where Dipper was able to then, find her at the last moment and be like, no, don't give it to him. I'm sorry, all this stuff. Right. No, it actually happened. There was, even if everything got wound back at the end of Weirdmageddon, there was still, damage that was done essentially as a result of that, right?
Right.
Which then tied in very well into the whole thing of Mabel being in her prison and them needing to get her out, right? Where again, the plot is revolves around the idea of there is some character conflict that needs to be resolved. I was kind of worried when they went and spent almost a full episode during Weird Mageddon on Mabel's prison, but that I am so glad that they did.
Yeah.
Right? Because anything less would have felt like a disservice.
Yep. Because they're the most important characters in the show.
Exactly.
Mabel and Dipper,
Yep.
their relationship. It's kind of in some ways how I joke about in Hunter x Hunter, how Gon and Killua's relationship is
Yes.
the main character. That's kind of the whole point of Gravity Falls as well. The relationship between family members is the main character of Gravity
Right.
Falls.
The characters are the story.
Well, yeah, the characters are the story, but specifically the characters of Mabel and Dipper, their relationship is the main character there.
Yep.
Every other, in some ways, relationship surrounding the show ends up being one that is influenced and or kind of gains something beneficial from the chaotic, wild, insane connection between Mabel and Dipper.
Like, this is one of those things where I wish we had seen this show when we did our dual main characters talk or whatever.
Oh, sure.
Like, because Mabel and Dipper are like textbook, like gold standard, like,
yeah.
like this is how you do dual main characters. Like, oh,
yeah. So, in terms of themes, I wanted to talk about my rule of two thing. Always two there are, no more, no less. A lot of the characters in this show have one other character that they care about tremendously. Now, what's interesting is that at times that character doesn't necessarily care about them, or the person that they're communicating with that they care about, they're human beings, so they're poor communicators. Multiple times throughout the show, you get the sense that there's this kind of rule, so to speak, that when characters start to go at things alone, when they start to kind of strike off and do things without support and go at things their own way, it's going to fail. It's going to fail pretty hard.
Yep.
There's an episode that I feel like on rewatch, I noticed something about this. You remember the Double Dipper or the Dipper? Yes, Double Dipper episode. Yeah. Double Dipper episode where he gets the copier.
Yes.
Dipper ends up doing, and I think this is maybe one of the subtler things specifically with Dipper's arc. There's ones that they do for Mabel as well. It's pretty insidious, but Dipper has, I would say, some early kind of signs of some kind of depression and or just angle with regards to him being in his own head in a way that is destructive. It doesn't ever lead to anything really, really harmful, but I feel like there were some things in the show that kind of tied to this here. Specifically, there's stuff with the possession of Dipper, where they kind of poke at it there. But when Dipper realizes that in order for him to figure this whole Wendy thing out, he delves so deep into his own stupid kind of creative idea thing that he creates a plan that is inordinately long and insane, and then ends up creating copies of himself, whereas the answer was all right in front of him, where Mabel basically just had it. Just go be yourself and talk to him there. So when this whole thing happens, he ends up in a situation where,
there's a bunch of him.
There's a bunch of him, and they make things seem like it's going easier.
But it's really just
no,
essentially patting himself on the back so that he can stay in the place where it's comfortable rather than going through growth, which is painful.
Yep.
And yes, thank you, GLaDOS. I love that line. We said we wouldn't betray each other. I think we both knew we were lying. Like,
so in the part where Dipper in some ways tries to grab onto the theory of the rule of two, he's actually just delving into copies. He's not actually getting help from anyone else.
So, no. You might say that what Dipper was doing was rather masturbatory.
Yeah, you could say that. Yep. So, in that episode, they parallel this with Mabel going on her own way with this to try and, have the fun at the party. But almost immediately, she goes to Grenda and Candy, which are characters that I can't believe we didn't really address in the whole side character thing, because they're kind
they
of
don't really have arcs,
they're just
they're
Mabel's friends, When You guys are all in chat. It's funny. When Mabel goes to them and just is herself, but kind of opens herself up to them,
Yeah.
she gains friends.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically at the end of the episode, she's like, Dipper, come hang out with my girlfriends.
Yep.
The whole point of what Mabel was trying to do was that if she went and tried to concoct this whole scheme in and of her head itself and what have you, then she would end up basically friendless. Tried to go through the whole thing there, but she ends up trying to do it with Grenda and Candice and relying on them. All the characters that are the villains end up kind of relying on themselves. They don't really have much kind of support there. The one who kind of potentially could have became an antagonist with
Stanford.
Stanford, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of thing. He tries to pretend like he's bringing another one in,
right?
Like Dipper in the rule of two thing there, but no, he's just trying to create another copy. Just trying to create another one. He's not actually looking for someone else's help.
Yep.
I just found that to be a really interesting kind of switch things where there were people that would just try to imprint themselves into a situation rather than actually seeking help and asking for it from some other way. And that was what Bill would do by possessing people as well.
And there are ways in which that can work because numbers are helpful, right?
Yeah.
You know, and if you have something that works, then having two of the thing that works, that's great. But if you don't have differences, then it gets stale. And when things get stale, bad things happen, right? Because you don't see your own weaknesses. You don't look out for things like that. One other thing I gotta say, I absolutely love the fact that the not the conflict itself, but sort of the flagship for the conflict between Stanford and Stanley at the end of the show was, you still haven't thanked me. I worked for 30 years to save you.
Sure.
And you still haven't thanked me, right?
Right.
Sometimes shows can go into melodrama where it's some particular little thing that just makes them mad at the other person or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if it's not sold, it doesn't go well. It doesn't go over well, right?
For sure.
But in this situation, yeah, he worked for 30 years and he didn't say thank you. That's a big deal, right? You know, recognition. Babies cry for it and grown men die for it, right? It's the thing that where there's that part of Stanley that essentially wants to be vulnerable. He wants his brother's approval, right? Mm-hmm. And yet he doesn't give it.
Yeah. And
that is absolutely the kind of thing that would ruin relationships. And it ties into the whole idea of communication and the importance of that, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure Stanford was very grateful. He just didn't bother to say it.
Yep.
You know? And like, that's the kind of thing where it's like, we can totally take that into our own lives.
Oh yeah.
Because how if you were to go percentage wise, how many of the issues that we end up getting into with people are simply because of lack of communication and understanding?
For sure. Yep. The aspect also of it being a thing where Stanley is asking, can we go back to being two? And it not all being about you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, fine, two. Yeah, fine. No, I actually need you to do this now. This would be really important.
Yep.
Then who was it that said this like really early on the show? Like, if not for your I think it was Gideon. If not for your childhood bickering, you would have defeated me.
Uh-huh.
And then right at the end of the show, basically has the same thing happen. I'm trying to remember if that was Bill or Gideon, though. Who says that, chat? The one that's like, you would have defeated me if not for your petty childhood bickering.
Maybe that was actually Bill when they... I think that was Bill Gideon. After they didn't do the circle thing. Maybe it was
I don't remember, but I remember that line because then when they had their moment of then going into like fighting and stuff, I'm like, wow, that was really childish. Oh. Yep. So there's that. But that's actually another great point with regards to the drama and the conflict surrounding a lot of the characters. Oh, it was Gideon? Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's right, where Dipple and Mabel shrink. Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm. When you have a lot of conflict between the characters that is based off of things that one character is holding on to really tightly, that's something that you need to explain well beforehand why they're holding on to that thing so tightly so it doesn't feel like melodrama.
Right.
Because drama in general is great.
Mm-hmm.
We want drama in our stories. So if characters aren't getting into conflicts with each other, can
Right.
feel a little bit stale here, unless that's literally the style of show you're going for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say the two moments where they came the closest to that were things that were amply set up beforehand. And again, they keep kind of setting it up with things where that was the same kind of conflicts that Mabel and Dipper would kind of either deftly avoid and kind of navigate through quite well because they're kids, or in some ways they wouldn't get it at all because they're kids and their immaturity wouldn't allow them to address it until it very much needed to be addressed.
Right.
Which was the whole instance of then Mabel's prison at the end of things. And
Yep.
that's probably the main theme thing here that I feel like is really, like, I'm sure it's appreciated by the fandom, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't really go into this. And that is the whole subject of, like, mental health in general in this show. It is a huge focus for a ton of the characters in what's going on here. Like, the times in which characters are ripped out of reality and pulled into some kind of fantasy world that they kind of want to be in,
Yep.
or some kind of oppressive mental force attacks them, possesses them, and treats them as their plaything. This is something that I just remember as I was watching the show going, this is a really dark thing to handle in a kids show. The idea of your own mind and the things that you believe you're perceiving, what have you, actively working against you. And it was a trait, I would say, specifically of Bill Cipher's in the majority of season 2's, like, kind of later stuff. With
He definitely helped propagate a lot of that.
But there's a lot in this where you could get into, I would say, not necessarily certainty in any ways. Maybe it's just some good debate surrounding what's kind of going on with a lot of the characters and the main core cast over the course of the show.
Well, that was the biggest thing that I wanted to see more of with regards to Wendy. In, like, the transition from season 1 to season 2, there were a couple moments really early on where Wendy basically gave signals that she was not doing well. Like in the episode with the confession, in the aftermath of that, where she's like, "Hey, dude, it's cool, right?" She's like, "And if you stop being my friend or whatever, I'm gonna throw myself into the bottomless pit." And I'm like, "Whoa, hold on, wait, like, I know that you're trying to tell him that, like, don't do that, but, like, wait, is there something more to that?" And then I think, like, 3 episodes later or 4 episodes later, there was something else that was like, and this wasn't the high school thing, like before that, where it was like, yeah, I'm not doing well probably, and then the high school thing was brought up, and it was like, ooh, I would have loved to have an episode that was going into that in a similar way that we got, like, that for Seuss, for instance.
Yeah. Seuss goes through it in a really crazy way. The Stans go through it in a really crazy way. McGucket is like a dramatic, over-the-top example of it.
Oh yeah.
But I like that we got to see a process there, that it wasn't all of a sudden. That's kind of the thing that I was worried they were going to do when he pulls out of the portal and he's like he's all crazy and stuff. But then they saw that it was that paranoia that untouched, it kept leading to more and more stuff because he was isolated.
Because mental health isn't like, if you have a bout of bad mental health, that's not like, I mean, it's an issue, but it's not a problem, if that makes sense, right? That's, everyone has those.
That's normal.
That's normal, right?
Yeah.
But it's the fact that McGucket kept erasing his memory, right? That was, it wasn't just him erasing his memory once. It was that he kept doing it. He relied on that. He let it turn into this self-sustaining thing that he didn't get out of.
Yep.
And go.
Yeah, and a lot of the characters that end up, I would say, going through the most of an arc in some ways is them coming to terms with a lot of the things that hurt them, broke them in a lot of ways, to the point where they then are able to be vulnerable with the people around them. Again, rule of 2 thing that you need at least one more.
Yep.
They then let that person into their world and give them the opportunity to just be there for them. I loved Seuss's backstory episode. And it was like a very much that thing of, Seuss has been here the whole time and we haven't given him backstory, so we're going to do that.
Let's fill in that question mark.
Let's fill in the question mark. Exactly. But that was something that was handled well, executed well, pretty consistently throughout the show. And it led to some of the best, I would say, moments or climaxes, I would say, for characters specifically. Like Pacifica in a way,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
like Seuss, like
Yeah,
Grunkle Stan.
Pacifica's episode with her parents was the one that I never expected because
Yeah,
I figured like we would get episodes for other characters before we got it for her,
for
you know?
Pacifica, right?
But man, that was well handled.
Yeah, from what I'm telling from in chat, but also just from like post show like inspection, Pacifica was a much loved fan favorite. So surprisingly, like kind of a okay, Pacifica has a huge fan club with regards to people that are in the community and stuff.
Well, she kind of actually, yeah, that's right. She kind of got multiple episodes because there was the episode with the golfing, which was also a Mabel episode, you know. And by the way, that whole thing of the the golf balls that were going into the gas area, and then like the one that like the one that
Oh
died,
my God.
like that was like
Oh
what?
my God.
What is this? But then she also got the episode with her parents and that whole situation.
Yeah, Northwest Mansion
Yep.
episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say maybe just a little theme thing that was really good was that this was a show with tons of levity, tons of comedy, and the dialogue was ridiculously good with regards to the comedy as well. But the show had an edge to it. It was dark at points.
Yeah.
And yet I would not call this an edgy show.
Right.
That is one of the things that I really feel like they handled not only the mature stuff in a respectful way, maybe because they were held back a little bit with regards to the Disney Channel stuff, but I think they handled the juxtaposition between dark, kind of mature stuff, which could lead to maybe some edginess, and humor and levity and snappy dialogue. That was married rather well.
Like the darkness felt like it was more of just talking up to the audience, right? Not treating them like kids, rather than trying to specifically treat them like teens, you know?
Sure.
Like, if that makes sense. Like, because we've all had those edgy faces.
Yeah. I think in some ways like you're saying, chat, like, yeah, the word edgy is a bit kind of homogenized of a whole bunch of things. But what I'm bringing the point is that the reason why the dark things were introduced wasn't there specifically for just shock value.
Right.
It was something that was tied to the aspect of the episodic story that was being told within the conflict of the supernatural Scooby-Doo kind of mystery thing that they would end up going for in that episode.
Yeah, the blood and the everything coming out of the heads of the animals
Ancient
on the wall.
sins.
Yeah, I was
Ancient sins.
whoa,
that was probably about as edgy as it got.
Probably.
In the show, in terms of like kind of excessive portrayal of the dark stuff to bring up the point. But
it sold it.
It sold it really well. So
and we had the bell in that episode. So
the bell was actually the darkest thing of that episode for sure.
Oh man.
Yeah, it makes the actual blood coming out of the heads mounted on the wall. Yeah. I also thought that in some ways, a lot of the things in the show that were, I would say, potentially too dark, you could tell that they used the comedy in really clever ways to kind of keep the parents at bay from sending like hate mail and stuff.
Yeah.
Like protesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a point where I realized, like, you know what? I think Alex Hirsch, he's just a troll. And he's just a genius troll. He is trolling all these parents into thinking that they're letting their kids watch a kids show. But he's like, no, I'm turning them into like what's the word I'm thinking for? Inquisitive, curious, and questioning things, like little critical thinkers. Like
Yep.
There was some really cool, clever things with that in the story.
But then, like, a lot of the stuff with Bill specifically, like,
sure.
Oh yeah, you know what? I think with these two kids, I think I'll just kill one of them for the heck of it. Like, I thought Disney had a thing against saying the K word. Like turn them into corpses or something. Sure, but but there you go.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. And that's kind of our dissertation on the show. The show is really good, and we're in the void.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really, I think, going to be anything that's exactly like Gravity Falls.
Like, I think the only way I'm going to have to deal with this void is by rewatching it with other people and getting them to watch it as much as possible. Like, that's how I'm going to have to deal with it.
And apparently there are shorts that we can check
Yes,
out.
I heard about that. Yeah.
And we'll check those out eventually as well.
Oh, but man, like, I remember, like, back in my Tumblr days, I remember seeing stuff for this show, like, because that would have been around Attack on Titan, so, like, season 1, maybe a little bit of season 2 or something, I don't know. But, like, and I remember, like, seeing some of the character designs, you know? And, like I think I remember seeing something about, like, the Grunkle Stan statue, you know? And that was a big thing or something like that.
Okay.
But I didn't remember much about it other than that people were talking about it in a very positive way. And it was like, oh, Gravity Falls. Oh, okay. You know?
Right, yeah.
Man, I am so glad that I finally watched it. And at the same time, I'm so mad that it took me this long to watch it.
Yeah.
But I guess we didn't have to put up with the, you know, what was it? 2 months or whatever between Weird Apocalypse part 2 and 3.
Oh no! Apparently it was like October to February or something like that. Like it was 4 months or something.
Wow.
That's the thing I think that really surprised me was hearing about Gravity Falls and hearing that there was a weird release schedule for the season, and that was season 2, I think. But I was just like, oh, that sucks for you guys. But I'm like, I was that close to then becoming a member of the fandom back in 2015, you know? Like, this close.
Yeah.
Yeah, what schedule?
And this
you were
is why
there when
we're consistent.
And I was there watching live as Not What He Seems happened. Everyone went nuts. Yeah, that was a really good episode.
Which one was that? Not What He Seems?
That was the season 2 episode where they went into, I believe, the specific aspects of Stanford's story, because Stanford came through the portal, I believe.
Oh, right.
And it was the
it was before the Tale of Two Stands. Yep, that's right.
Wait, there was a 4-month wait between Not What He Seems and A Tale of Two Stands? Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Dang. Wait, do you know about Alex Hirsch's girlfriend's show, The Owl House? It's also on Disney, and she was the main artist of Gravity Falls, and she's really into horror. The show is a horror comedy. Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
Nice. Very awesome. Grunkle Stan, I trust you. Gets a whole ton of fan art. Whoa. Yeah. I was watching Tale of Two Stands live and my connection was bad. I was losing my mind.
Oh no. Oh no.
Wow. I thought the show was done when I started my binge. We were actually halfway done waiting for the final episode. Self blue ball. Yikes.
Wow.
Oh man. But yeah, in terms of just good Western animation stuff out there, I've heard a lot of great things about kind of shows that have come out and more just kind of run their course in recent years. But it is really fun to see, I would say, mature character writing and mature plot threading and storytelling in like Disney Channel stuff.
Right.
And then realize, wait, this has been around and finished for 4 years?
Yep.
Where was I all that time?
Well, same situation with Kizu, you know, like.
Well, yeah, Kizu came out much more recently, though.
No, the final movie of Kizu was 2016.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I remember people talking about
the
like
final movie.
Yeah, because it was like that, and then I think one of the Ava movies. Were coming out in like at like the same time, and people were like, "Yes, this is a good year for anime and all that." But
cool. Well, hey, apparently there's a good number of people who haven't seen Gravity Falls. Maybe we can make an event of them watching through blind live on the Discord channel. I mean, maybe. That'd be interesting.
Oh, and yes, we do know about the reverse messaging for Bill and all that stuff.
And we know about the real-life search for the Bill Cipher statue.
Yep.
Yeah. Disney has some good stuff. DuckTales reboot is fantastic. Oh,
I've heard a lot of people that worked on Gravity Falls worked on DuckTales.
Okay. Mature story writing, but also mature story handling. Knowing when to end the show is so important.
Yes. I know about the Bill song. I haven't listened to it yet.
No, I haven't listened to the Bill song either. So
I gotta say, I'm glad I haven't heard it yet, so I might change my mind. But I'm glad it wasn't in there. I feel like it would have been a bit of a shift that I wouldn't have fully appreciated.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
because I remember like when Gideon did his song in his introductory episode, and it was like,
Yeah. I think it's also like you and I are not the biggest music fans, like music numbers.
Well, I mean, I love musicals like Disney and whatnot, but like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
But I'm meaning musical numbers in non-musicals.
In non-musicals, not
yeah,
really.
yeah. Because you kind of have to set yourself up for the drama and the presentation and the, I would say, kind of unique form of storytelling that musicals tend to be, where it's like, this is an excerpt from this character's life told in the form of song. We get to kind of see a little bit into them, and it's like, well, unless we're doing that frequently, I might not be excited about that in a different show. Oh man!
Oh boy!
So excited for you guys to get back into Kaguya Love is War. Oh yeah, it's gonna be.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Don't forget the tiger song in the Minotaur. Yeah. What's also the other thing that they did a lot of JoJo kind of type stuff from, where they changed the names of like.
Oh yeah, Baba.
Yeah. There's so many like little things that they very narrowly avoided copyright stuff by just changing the name slightly or changing the lyrics
in
slightly.
the Tale of Two Dippers, when Mabel's like, Seuss, give me the most generic crowd-pleasing song ever. He's like, you got it, dude.
Don't stop unbelieving.
Yeah.
Don't not
feel your feelings.
Yeah, don't not feel your feelings.
That was just like, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of good comedy. I think that was probably the thing that made me disco girl coming through.
Yeah.
That girl is you or something like whatever. But the comedy in the show had moments where they were like blah fart noises, But then wop wop, there are so many moments where you're like, that's good, decent quality kid humor. But then there are other parts where there'd just be dialogue delivered in such a way that you'd be like, I am really trying hard not to die laughing right now. Like, that is so good.
Oh my god, yes. Everything that Robbie did as far as like his songs for Wendy and whatnot. And like oh man. And what was the thing that it was either Dipper or Mabel or someone was like, no, just because he has like skinny jeans and like plays the guitar, like, like that doesn't mean he's a good person. It's like, dude, but skinny jeans and a guitar or something like that. Like, hot Belgian waffles.
Oh wait, my god,
I can swear now.
Yes, you'll go to heaven with our grandpa.
No, he is not there.
Yeah.
And then she looks down. That line. Oh, that was good.
Oh man.
Yeah, hot Belgian waffles.
Son of a. Fast forward.
Yeah. Wait, because it's like, I'm alone.
Yeah,
I can swear now.
Yeah,
son of a. Yeah. That was a good. What are some of your favorite lines to quote? Like, I gotta hear them so I can like go back and find them.
But her aim is getting better.
See, it's funny because marriage is terrible.
Yeah. Oh man, this isn't my favorite, but just. This will always be special to me, of just the, I can buy and sell you, old man. Oh.
Avenge me, kids.
Oh, yeah, and the, if I die, make sure my tombstone is bigger than Stanford.
What was the one, road laws prepare to be ignored, or something. Road safety laws prepare to be ignored. Yes, that one, exactly.
Fighting kids is boring. Fighting a chaos god sounds fun.
Yeah. Oh, there are a lot of good ones there. Yep. Oh my god.
If you think that's scary, you should see Dipper's internet search history.
Yeah, that's actually the other thing. The humor became a little bit like more suggestive in season 2 by like a factor of like 3 or something. And it'd be like, they'd like find like not porn magazines in like
these women are fully clothed.
Like it was like fully clothed women in swimsuits or something.
Right.
Like it was like, I'm like, did they really just do that?
Haha, you fight like a girl who is also a baby.
Oh my god. That's why I have 10 guns, in case some maniac brings a ladder in here. Yes. Yes. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Oh my god. What was the one with the cult? The cult. The Society of the Blind Eye.
Blind Eye.
Yeah, I think there were a couple lines in that one that I really liked.
Not a quote, but the "I eat kids" balloon cracked me up. That was great. Yeah.
Yes, that was good. I think in some ways, actually, something that's just an example of what made the show's continuity and comedy, I would say, so good, was just when the S falls off of the shack name, and it just stays like that forever.
Right,
and then you realize that
the hack, whatever.
Well, right, but that's kind of the whole thing of what the creator poking fun at himself.
Mm-hmm.
He's a mystery hack.
Yep.
You know, he's just like, yeah, I know. Critique all you want. I'm owning it. I'm a mystery hack.
Mommy, is the floating head gonna eat us? Yes, Tommy. Yes, he will.
Wendy had a line about shining a black light at her mouth and it looking like a crime scene. I thought that implied something very lewd, but apparently that's just what teeth do in UV. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh, I had no idea.
Wow.
I didn't even think about that at all. Wow. I just thought that meant that, like, she had some awkward teeth, you know, so her teeth looked a little funky, you know. I'm like, that's yeah, that makes sense, but oh my god. That's some deep, like, under the radar lewd jokes. Wow.
How dare you, lewd Wendy chat. Oh man.
We didn't even talk about the episode that basically Doki Doki Literature Club freaking ripped off.
Yeah, it was just straight up like Doki Doki. Like I'm convinced now that Doki Doki Literature Club, the creator, was just like watching Gravity Falls. It's like, that is awesome. I'm gonna make it into an actual visual novel. I'll make millions. Like,
but that episode. No. Where's that cat video? No. I just can't believe they did that. And like, here's the other thing. They low-key joked about hentai in that episode.
Yeah.
The part was like,
my dad is an octopus. Like,
yeah. The part is like, and her dad is an octopus for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's
just like, no.
What?
No.
That's so wrong on multiple levels. Like, oh yeah, and when he's like, oh dude, this is like, you should make a sword gun or something. Like, what do you mean a sword gun?
Yeah, in the
sword.
finale.
You know, yeah, it'd be just like an anime. What's an anime, dude? We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I don't know if you guys noticed, saw something. I noticed somewhere, but after almost every episode, an item from the episode was added in the background of Dipper and Mabel's room.
Really?
Well, I think I noticed a couple of them, but I didn't see it as like a pattern.
Yeah, I noticed some, but I didn't notice that it would like happen like when it would happen, you know?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, Shy. Yeah, don't you feel bad about that? Maybe a little. Not anymore. Yeah. Yes, that meta joke. I'll have you know that Duck-tective has a big mystery element and a lot of humor that goes over kids' heads. Yes, that was really good, self-aware humor.
And the whole thing of the identical twin? I called that like a year ago. Like,
yes, that was good. I've been wandering the plains like a desperado, helping strangers. I guess there's some folks. Oh yeah, that was Susan's line.
Yeah.
I've been wandering the plains like a desperado, helping strangers. I guess there's some folk songs about me now.
Yeah. Oh, and also Gideon Mad Max.
Yes.
Gideon Mad Max was amazing. Yep. Oh man.
Oh right. You see, Mabel, these monsters are just figures moved one frame at a time by an antisocial shut-in. Those people are called animators.
Yeah. And it's like, who would ever want to do something like that? Like,
oh, and then the fight scene in that episode.
That's so cool. Like,
that's so cool. Yeah. If only we could, like, you know,
right.
If only this was like in the frame or something like that, you know? That was wonderful.
That was just great.
Yeah, the claymation episode was genius.
Oh man. It's like, wow, people must really hate their lives if they do something like that.
Why can't boys learn to hate each other in secret like girls do? Yes. Seuss's life is my soap opera. Yeah. All right. Wow. Yeah. This is great. We're going over a lot of highlights here, but we're kind of done in terms of the discussion here. So we're gonna wrap things up really quick, everybody. But thank you all for joining us. I'm so glad we found this show and found you guys also love this show a lot. So it'll be cool to continue the discussion with it on the Discord.
And yes, bro, the meta joke about Seuss saying that the Stan's backstory better be like his fan fiction. that was wonderful.
Oh, it's so great.
Wonderful.
Yeah, they turned the shack into a mecha robot. Yeah, that was
we literally had a mech at the finale of each season.
Yeah, I think in some ways, like once McGucket came in there, he's like, "I have a plan." I'm like, "Turn it into a robot."
Yep,
build a robot, and then they actually did it. Oh my god. Yes. Oh, random little thing I want to mention. Do you remember the Irrational Treasure episode where they had the page out of the history book that was for the fake founder, and then if you paused and read it, you read the whole thing. It got to a point where just Alex Hirsch just broke the fourth wall entirely. And it was I'm tired. Writing jokes for cartoons is hard.
Yeah. That was great.
I love that stuff. That was just good. But yeah, thank you all for hanging out with us and chatting about Gravity Falls. Good times, good stuff. And now on to the void. So y'all. We'll see you in a future stream. We have all our streams on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Mondays for podcast, Tuesdays for One Piece manga dramatic readings. Thursday for what's happening this time?
Komi manga readings.
Ooh,
it's normally gaming, but right now we're catching up on Komi, then we'll be catching up on Attack on Titan, and then after that is going to be Telltale's The Wolf Among Us.
Ooh. Exciting. Yeah. And then I am playing Pyre on my stream on Fridays at 3 p.m.
Yep.
But yeah.
Ooh, and my sci-fi novel Battle Lines, link in chat to Amazon where you can purchase it. It's awesome.
Yeah. And then we'll see you all in the next one. But until then, y'all, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all in the next
time.
one. Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
Man.
Not the void. It's dark and scary there. Don't send me back. I can't take it anymore.
I gotta say, it was so satisfying to have Bill beg and plead for his life. Where he's like, "No, please, I'll give you anything.
Money,
what do you
power,
want?
your own universe,
money, wealth, fame. Infinite power, your own galaxy, please." Like, that was just yes.
Yeah, it was quite good.
That was real good.
Yeah, I love that. Also, punching things came to be basically the way that they ended it.
Yeah,
it was just like, that's the thing I got. I can punch things.
Yep.
And they're like, "Yep, there you go. You punch things." One Piece tomorrow. Yep.
Oh boy. Whew.
All right. I mean, what's one way we can tease them about Battle Lines in like 7 seconds?
Okay. Family.
Oh, family. Yeah.
That involves also some things